Carl Porter jolts awake, his body trapped in a cocoon of alien flesh. Lena, the Binar female, clings to him desperately, her tendrils intertwined with his limbs inside the cramped sleeping pod. Her silver skin pulses with an otherworldly glow, her binary eyes fixed on Carl's face. "I cannot sleep without you, Carl," Lena whispers, her voice a haunting melody of ones and zeros. "Your warmth, your presence. It's the only thing keeping my neural networks stable." Carl's mind races, trying to process the implications of this unexpected intimacy. The interstellar research station Nexus 7 hums around them, its metal walls vibrating with the energy of 1,000 scientific pursuits. Outside, the mysterious exoplanet they orbit looms large, a constant reminder of humanity's quest for knowledge. "Lena, what happened?" Carl asks, his voice hoarse from sleep. "Where's your Binar partner?" Lena's grip tightens, her body trembling. "Gone. Lost in the accident. You're my lifeline now." The gravity of the situation crashes down on Carl. He recalls the tragic incident that claimed the lives of several Binar researchers, but he never imagined the consequences would be so personal, so intimate. A sharp knock on the pod's hatch interrupts his thoughts. Dr. Evelyn Reeves, the station's human commander, peers in, her face a mask of concern and urgency. "Porter, we need to talk. Now." Moments later, Carl stands in Dr. Reeves's office, Lena still clinging to him like a second skin. The commander's words hit him like a plasma blast. "The Binar government is demanding your cooperation, Porter. If you refuse, they'll withhold crucial technological advancements. Earth needs this, especially with our energy crisis." Carl's mind reels. "But why me? Why Lena?" Dr. Reeves leans forward, her eyes intense. "Lena's neural structure contains vital data about a powerful energy source. It could solve everything, Porter, but we can only extract it if she remains in optimal health. And right now, that means staying connected to you." The weight of responsibility settles on Carl's shoulders. He glances at Lena, her alien features a mix of vulnerability and determination. He realizes that his body, his very presence, has become a lifeline not just for her, but potentially for all of humanity. As they exit the office, Carl notices the sideways glances and hushed whispers of the other crew members. Resentment simmers beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. Unbeknownst to them all, sinister forces are already at work. In the maintenance bay, a group of Zarkoth infiltrators don human disguises, their reptilian eyes gleaming with malice. They've come for Lena, for the precious information locked within her binary mind. Their plan, born of ignorance, could prove fatal not just for Lena, but for the delicate balance of interspecies relations. Carl Porter, once a simple scientist, now finds himself at the center of a cosmic storm. With Lena wrapped around him, he must navigate the treacherous waters of alien politics, personal boundaries, and humanity's desperate need for energy. The fate of Earth's future rests in his hands, or, more accurately, in the alien warmth that now resides within him. Carl's mind raced as he and Lena made their way through the bustling corridors of Nexus 7. The weight of Earth's future pressed down on him, intertwined with the alien warmth of Lena's body. As they rounded a corner, Dr. Reeves appeared, her face etched with concern. "Porter, we need to move you two to a secure location," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Follow me." They hurried through the station, passing curious and sometimes hostile glances from other crew members. Carl felt their eyes boring into him, a mix of fascination and resentment. He tightened his grip on Lena, feeling her pulse quicken through her silvery skin. Dr. Reeves led them to a private research suite, its door sliding open with a soft hiss. Inside, an array of specialized equipment hummed softly, screens flickering with data streams. "This will be your new quarters," Dr. Reeves explained, gesturing to the room. "We've set up monitoring systems to study your unique situation. It's for your safety and Lena's well-being." Carl nodded, understanding the necessity, but feeling a twinge of unease at the idea of constant observation. As Dr. Reeves left, he caught a glimpse of the other scientists in the corridor, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie glow. Carl's heart raced as he heard panicked voices and the sound of running feet outside their room. Warning, life support systems compromised, communications array offline, all personnel report to designated evacuation zones, the station's AI announced, its usually calm voice tinged with urgency. Carl looked at Lena, her binary eyes wide with fear. "We need to move," he said, guiding her toward the door. As they stepped into the chaos of the corridor, Carl noticed two maintenance workers moving against the flow of evacuating crew members. Their movements seemed oddly deliberate, their eyes scanning the crowd with predatory focus. A chill ran down Carl's spine as he realized these weren't regular station personnel. "This way," Carl whispered to Lena, pulling her towards a service hatch. He pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel bathed in dim emergency lighting. They crawled through the cramped space, the station's alarms muffled but still audible. Carl's heart pounded in his chest, every shadow seeming to hide a potential threat. Behind him, Lena's breathing became labored, her movements growing sluggish. "Carl," she gasped, her voice a fragmented binary code. "My neural network. Destabilizing." Carl's mind raced. He knew what Lena needed, but the implications made him hesitate. They crawled into a small maintenance alcove, barely large enough for both of them. Lena's silver skin had lost its luster, her form trembling against him. "I'm sorry," Carl whispered, "but I have to do this." He pulled Lena close, initiating an intimate physical connection. Her tendrils intertwined with his body, a surge of alien sensations flooding his nervous system. Carl gasped, overwhelmed by the intensity of their bond. He felt Lena's consciousness brush against his own, her binary thoughts pulsing through his mind. As Lena's neural network stabilized, Carl became acutely aware of how this act had changed things between them. The intimacy of their connection went beyond the physical, touching something deep within his psyche. He pushed the complex emotions aside, focusing on their immediate survival. They continued through the service tunnels, Carl hyper-aware of every sound and movement. As they emerged into a dimly lit corridor, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Carl tensed, ready to run, but relaxed slightly when he recognized Dr. Marcus Mitchell, the station's xenobiologist. "Porter, wait," Dr. Mitchell called softly, holding up his hands. "I've been observing you and Lena. I think I can help." Carl eyed him warily. "How long have you been watching us?" Dr. Mitchell had the grace to look embarrassed. "Long enough to develop this," he said, producing a small device from his pocket. "It's a prototype neural stabilizer. It could reduce Lena's dependence on physical contact." Carl's heart leaped at the possibility, but doubt quickly followed. "Is it safe? Has it been tested?" "Not on binar physiology," Dr. Mitchell admitted. "It's experimental, but it could be the solution we need." Before Carl could respond, the station shuddered violently. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the corridors, followed by alien screeches. "Zarkoth," Lena whispered, her body tensing against Carl's. "This way," Dr. Mitchell urged, leading them towards a nearby research lab. They barely made it inside before Commander Jack Harper's voice boomed over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. Station-wide lockdown initiated. Remain in your current locations. This is not a drill." The lab's doors sealed shut with a heavy thud, cutting them off from the rest of the station. Carl helped Lena to a nearby bench, acutely aware of her weakening condition. Dr. Mitchell hurried to a workstation, fingers flying over holographic interfaces as he worked to adapt the neural stabilizer. "How long?" Carl asked, his voice tight with urgency. 10 minutes, maybe less," Dr. Mitchell replied, not looking up from his work. A heavy impact shook the door, followed by the sound of alien voices. Carl's blood ran cold as he realized the Zarkoth had found them. He looked at Lena, her silver skin pulsing weakly, then at the untested device in Dr. Mitchell's hands. Time was running out. Carl had to make a choice. Trust the experimental technology or rely on their physical bond to keep Lena stable. The fate of the energy source data, Earth's future, and his deepening relationship with Lena hung in the balance. Another impact rattled the door. Carl took a deep breath, steeling himself for the decision that would change everything. Carl's heart pounded as he stared at the neural stabilizer in Dr. Mitchell's hands. The door shuddered again, the Zarkoth's efforts intensifying. With a deep breath, Carl made his decision. "Let's do it," he said, reaching for the device. Dr. Mitchell nodded, handing over the small metallic disc with its pulsing blue lights. "Remember, it needs to interface directly with her neural structure. The temple should work best." Carl turned to Lena, her silver skin dulled and trembling. "Lena, we're going to try something. It might help you, but I don't know what it'll do." Lena's binary eyes flickered. "I trust you, Carl," she whispered, her voice a weak stream of ones and zeros. Carefully, Carl pressed the device against Lena's temple. For a moment, nothing happened. Then with a soft click, the stabilizer adhered to her skin. The blue lights intensified, pulsing in sync with Lena's own bioluminescence. Suddenly, Lena's body went rigid. Her skin began to shift, cycling through a dizzying array of colors. Carl held her tightly, feeling her convulse in his arms. "What's happening?" he shouted to Dr. Mitchell, who was monitoring a nearby console. "Her binary physiology is adapting to the new input," Mitchell replied, his eyes darting between Lena and the readouts. "It's working, but the process is volatile." The lab door buckled inward, the metal groaning under the assault. Carl could hear alien voices on the other side, guttural and filled with malice. Just as the door gave way with a thunderous crash, Lena's eyes snapped open. They glowed with an otherworldly blue light, matching the stabilizer's pulsing rhythm. In a fluid motion that caught Carl completely off guard, Lena broke free from his embrace and stood to face the intruders. Two Zarkoth agents burst into the lab, their reptilian features contorted with aggression. Dr. Mitchell attempted to block their path, but one of the aliens swatted him aside effortlessly. The scientist crashed into a nearby workstation, dazed but still conscious. The lead Zarkoth advanced on Carl and Lena, its clawed hands outstretched. Carl tensed, prepared to defend Lena at all costs. But before he could move, Lena stepped forward. With a grace and speed Carl had never seen from her before, Lena engaged the Zarkoth. Her movements were precise, calculated, and devastatingly effective. She ducked under the alien's first swipe, then delivered a series of rapid strikes to key points on its body. The Zarkoth stumbled, clearly caught off guard by her unexpected prowess. Seizing the moment, Carl launched himself at the second Zarkoth, which was still grappling with Dr. Mitchell. His tackle caught the alien mid-stride, sending them both crashing to the floor. They rolled across the lab, trading blows and grappling for dominance. Out of the corner of his eye, Carl saw Lena execute a complex maneuver that sent her Zarkoth opponent flying into a bank of equipment. The alien slumped to the ground unconscious. With rekindled purpose, Carl redoubled his efforts against his own adversary. He managed to pin the Zarkoth's arms, but the alien's superior strength was quickly overwhelming him. Suddenly, Lena was there. With surgical precision, she struck several points on the Zarkoth's body. The alien's struggles weakened, then ceased entirely. Panting, Carl looked up at Lena in amazement. "How did you—" "The neural stabilizer," Lena explained, her voice stronger and clearer than he'd ever heard it. "It unlocked hidden reserves of knowledge in my binary neural network, including binar defensive techniques." Dr. Mitchell limped over, clutching his side but looking excited despite the pain. "Fascinating. The stabilizer must have integrated with your systems more completely than we anticipated." As Carl and Dr. Mitchell secured the unconscious Zarkoth with makeshift restraints, Lena's expression grew serious. "Carl, there's more. The stabilizer, it's given me access to the energy source data." Carl's eyes widened. "You mean—" Lena nodded. "I believe I can save the station." As if on cue, Commander Harper's voice crackled over the intercom. "All available personnel report to the control room immediately. We need every able body to prevent this station from becoming a very expensive meteor." Carl turned to Lena, hope and uncertainty warring in his chest. "Are you sure about this? What about your condition?" Lena's binary eyes softened as she looked at him. "The stabilizer has reduced my need for constant physical contact, but—" She hesitated, her silver skin flushing slightly. To maintain optimal neural function and access the energy data, I'll still require regular, intimate encounters with you, just not as frequently as before. Carl felt a surge of complex emotions at her words, relief at the prospect of more personal freedom, warred with a deepening sense of connection to Lena. Before he could fully process these feelings, another tremor shook the station, more violent than before. "We need to move," Dr. Mitchell urged, gesturing towards the door. "The control room's our best bet for saving Nexus 7. Carl nodded, pushing aside his inner turmoil for the moment. He turned to Lena, who stood tall and confident, a far cry from the fragile being he'd been cradling just minutes ago. "Ready?" he asked. Lena's binary eyes pulsed with determination. "Ready?" Together they stepped out of the relative safety of the lab and into the chaos-filled corridors of Nexus 7. The station's fate, along with the future of human-alien relations and the promise of a revolutionary energy source, all hung in the balance. And at the center of it all, Carl and Lena's evolving bond continued to defy expectations, blurring the lines between duty, science, and something far more profound. As Carl, Lena, and Dr. Mitchell emerged from the lab, the corridor stretched before them like a gauntlet of flickering lights and emergency sirens. The station's tremors grew more frequent, each one a stark reminder of their precarious situation. "We need to get to the control room," Carl said, his voice tight with urgency. "Lena, can you access the station schematics?" Lena's eyes pulsed with blue light as she processed the information. "Yes. The fastest route is through section C7, but it's currently experiencing severe structural instability." Dr. Mitchell frowned. "We can't risk that. What's our next best option?" "Maintenance corridor B3, Lena replied. "It's a longer route, but should be more stable." Carl nodded, taking the lead. "Let's move." They navigated the chaos-filled passageways, dodging falling debris and panicked crew members. As they turned a corner, they encountered a sealed lab door with muffled shouts coming from inside. Carl hesitated, torn between their urgent mission and the cries for help. Making a split-second decision, he moved to the door's control panel. "We can't leave them trapped." Working quickly, Carl bypassed the emergency lockdown protocols. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a group of disheveled researchers. Among them stood a woman with short black hair and determined eyes. "Dr. Lydia Zhang," she introduced herself, stepping forward. "Propulsion systems engineer. What's our situation?" Carl gave her a brief rundown as they helped the other researchers to safety. Dr. Zhang's eyes widened at the mention of the energy source data. "I have a portable diagnostic tool," she said, producing a sleek device from her lab coat. "It could be crucial in assessing the propulsion damage." "You're with us then," Carl decided, noticing the grateful looks from the other researchers as they headed for the nearest safe zone. The expanded group continued their journey, with Dr. Zhang's expertise providing valuable insights into the station's deteriorating systems. As they approached the main access corridor to the control room, Lena suddenly stiffened. "Zarkoth signatures detected," she whispered. "At least 5 of them, blocking our path." Carl's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "The maintenance ducts," he said, pointing to a nearby access hatch. "We can use them to bypass the Zarkoth." One by one, they squeezed into the narrow duct system. The close quarters forced Carl and Lena into intimate proximity, their bodies pressed together as they crawled through the cramped space. Suddenly, Lena's skin began to pulse with vibrant patterns of light. Carl felt a surge of warmth where their bodies touched, and Lena's breathing quickened. "Carl," she whispered, her voice strained, "the stabilizer, it's reacting to our closeness." Dr. Mitchell, crawling behind them, noticed the change. "Fascinating. It seems the neural stabilizer has heightened her sensitivity to physical contact." Carl tried to focus on their mission, but he couldn't ignore the way Lena's body trembled against his. "We'll deal with this later," he murmured to her. "Stay with me, Lena. We're almost there." They emerged from the ducts into a side corridor, just meters from the control room. As they approached, they could hear Commander Harper's voice barking orders amidst the chaos of alarms and frantically working crew members. The door slid open, revealing a scene of controlled panic. Crewmen worked feverishly at various stations, while Harper stood at the center, his face grim as he surveyed a holographic display of the station's rapidly decaying orbit. "Porter," Harper called out, spotting them. "Please tell me you have something." Carl nodded towards Lena. "She has the energy source data. We think we can save the station." Without hesitation, Lena moved to the central computer terminal. Her hands danced over the interface, streams of binary code flowing from her fingers into the system. The holographic display flickered, then exploded into a complex web of calculations and trajectories. "Incredible," Dr. Zhang breathed, her eyes darting between the display and her diagnostic tool. "She's computing orbital corrections faster than our most advanced systems." But as the minutes ticked by, Carl noticed Lena's movements becoming less fluid, her skin losing its luster. Dr. Mitchell saw it too, his expression growing worried. "The data flow is overwhelming the stabilizer," he said quietly to Carl. "She needs your support." Carl looked around the crowded control room, acutely aware of the dozens of eyes focused on their efforts. He knew what needed to be done, but the public nature of their situation made him hesitate. Another violent tremor shook the station, and warning klaxons blared as they entered the upper atmosphere of the exoplanet below. Harper's voice cut through the noise. "Whatever you're going to do it now. We're out of time." Making his decision, Carl moved behind Lena, shielding her as much as possible from view. He wrapped his arms around her, initiating the intimate contact her systems craved. Immediately, he felt the familiar surge of connection, their consciousness brushing against each other. Lena's skin brightened, her fingers moving with renewed speed across the interface. Carl could feel the incredible torrent of data flowing through her, and by extension, through him. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. "Dr. Zhang," Carl called out, his voice strained. "Are you ready with those corrections?" "Inputting them now," Zhang replied, her fingers flying over her console. "Harper, prepare to fire emergency thrusters on my mark." The next moments passed in a blur of sensation and data. Carl was only vaguely aware of the shuddering station, of Harper's tense countdown, of the collective held breath of everyone in the control room. His world had narrowed to Lena, to the incredible connection they shared, to the monumental effort of holding her together as she worked to save them all. Then, with a final tremor that seemed to shake the very foundations of Nexus 7, the emergency thrusters fired. Long seconds passed as the station groaned and creaked, fighting against the pull of gravity. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the shaking began to subside. The holographic display showed their trajectory stabilizing, pulling away from the exoplanet's atmosphere. A cheer went up from the control room staff, but Carl barely heard it. He was focused on Lena, who had slumped in his arms, her systems cycling down from the immense effort. As the adrenaline of the crisis faded, Carl became acutely aware of the stares and whispers surrounding them. He gently disengaged from Lena, helping her to a nearby chair. Commander Harper approached, his expression a mix of gratitude and concern. "Porter, a word," he said, gesturing to a quiet corner of the room. As Carl moved to follow Harper, he caught Dr. Mitchell's eye. The scientist's face was grave as he motioned Carl over. "We need to talk," Mitchell said in a low voice. "The stabilizer, it's having unforeseen effects. On both of you." Carl nodded, feeling the weight of new complications settling on his shoulders. They had saved Nexus 7, but at what cost? As he prepared to face Harper's questions and Mitchell's concerns, Carl knew that their ordeal was just the beginning. The Zarth were still out there, and the true nature of his connection with Lena was only beginning to reveal itself. As Carl prepared to face Harper's questions and Mitchell's concerns, he knew that their ordeal was just the beginning. The Zarth were still out there, and the true nature of his connection with Lena was only beginning to reveal itself. In the days that followed, Nexus 7 settled into an uneasy calm. Commander Harper initiated a station-wide security sweep, determined to root out any remaining Zarth infiltrators. As a precautionary measure, Carl and Lena found themselves confined to their quarters. Carl paced the small room, his mind racing with recent events. He paused by the viewport, watching the unfamiliar stars of this distant sector. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple despite the room's cool temperature. "Carl?" Lena's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Your body temperature has increased by 1.3 degrees in the last 5 minutes." He turned to face her, noticing the way her silver skin seemed to shimmer more vividly than before. "I feel different," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Everything seems more intense. Sounds, smells, even the texture of my clothes against my skin." Lena tilted her head, her binary eyes pulsing with concern. "Your pupils are dilated, and your heart rate has increased by 12%. Before Carl could respond, the door chimed. Dr. Mitchell entered, his arms laden with medical equipment. "How are our patients today?" he asked, setting up a portable scanner. "Something's happening to me, Doc," Carl said, submitting to the examination. "It's like all my senses are in overdrive." Mitchell nodded, his expression grave as he studied the readouts. "I was afraid of this. Your prolonged exposure to Lena's unique biology, combined with the neural link you've established, is causing unforeseen alterations to your physiology." Carl's stomach tightened. What kind of alterations? Before Mitchell could elaborate, the door slid open again. Dr. Lydia Zhang burst in, her eyes bright with excitement. "I've done it!" she exclaimed, waving a data pad. "I've deciphered the energy source data." The room's attention shifted as Zhang explained her findings. The information Lena had provided pointed to a nearby asteroid field as the location of a naturally occurring element with immense energy potential. Commander Harper's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting Zhang's enthusiastic explanation. "Porter, report to my office immediately. We need to discuss your role in an upcoming mission." As Carl made his way through Nexus 7's corridors, he couldn't help but notice how every sensation seemed heightened. The hum of the life support systems, the subtle vibrations beneath his feet, even the faint scent of recycled air, all of it registered with startling clarity. Harper's office was a model of utilitarian design. The commander sat behind a sleek desk, his expression unreadable as Carl entered. "Porter," Harper began without preamble, "we're organizing an expedition to the asteroid field Dr. Zhang identified. Given your intimate knowledge of the data and your unique situation, I want you to lead the mission." Carl nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "What about Lena?" Harper's face hardened. "She's insisting on joining the expedition. Claims her presence is necessary for real-time data interpretation." As they discussed the mission parameters, Carl's enhanced senses picked up on subtle details he might have missed before. The slight tremor in Harper's hand as he pulled up holographic schematics, the faint scent of stress hormones in the air. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Carl underwent a final medical examination, during which Dr. Mitchell made a startling discovery. "Your cellular structure is showing signs of adaptation," Mitchell explained, his voice a mix of concern and scientific fascination. "It's as if your body is trying to harmonize with Lena's binary physiology." Despite these concerns, the mission proceeded as planned. Carl found himself aboard the Star Dancer, a compact exploration vessel, alongside Lena, Dr. Zhang, and their newly assigned pilot, Lieutenant Marcus Kovacs. As the airlock sealed behind them, Carl felt a surge of excitement tinged with unease. He glanced at Lena, noting how her silver skin seemed to pulse in sync with the ship's systems. "All right, folks," Kovacs called from the pilot's seat, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Next stop, uncharted asteroid field. Let's hope we don't end up as space dust." The Star Dancer detached from Nexus 7 with a gentle shudder. As they accelerated towards their destination, Carl's enhanced perception allowed him to feel every minute vibration, every subtle shift in the ship's trajectory. Hours later, they approached the asteroid field. The ship's sensors lit up with unusual energy signatures emanating from a cluster of large asteroids. "This is going to be tricky," Kovacs muttered, his brow furrowing as he maneuvered through the treacherous field. The asteroids exhibited unexpected magnetic properties, playing havoc with their navigation systems. Carl stepped closer to the view screen, his heightened senses alert to the subtle shifts in the asteroid field's dynamics. "Lieutenant, adjust course 3 degrees starboard," he said, his voice steady. There's a safer path opening up. Kovash raised an eyebrow but complied. The Star Dancer glided smoothly through a gap that seemed to materialize just as Carl had predicted. As they neared the central cluster, Dr. Zhang's excitement grew palpable. "The scans confirm it," she announced, her eyes glued to her console. "Those caverns are packed with the energy-rich element." Their elation was short-lived. As they prepared to dock with the largest asteroid, Zhang's console emitted a series of sharp beeps. "I'm detecting a faint encrypted signal," she reported, her voice tense. "The pattern, it's similar to Zarkoth communication protocols." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Carl felt Lena stiffen beside him, her binary eyes pulsing rapidly as she processed this new information. "Change of plans," Carl said, his mind racing. "We need to investigate this potential Zarkoth presence while securing samples of the element." As Carl and Lena donned their specialized spacesuits preparing for their EVA, the gravity of their situation settled over them. They were about to venture into unknown territory, cut off from communication with Nexus 7, facing potential Zarkoth opposition, all while grappling with the ongoing changes in Carl's physiology and Lena's neural stability. The airlock hissed open, revealing the vast expanse of space. Carl and Lena exchanged a final glance before stepping out into the void. As they floated towards the mouth of the largest cavern, the asteroid's craggy surface reflecting the dim light of a distant star, Carl couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. Whatever lay within those caverns would undoubtedly change the course of their mission, their relationship, and perhaps the future of human-binar relations itself. As Carl and Lena stepped out into the void, the vastness of space enveloped them. The asteroid's craggy surface loomed before them, its contours illuminated by the dim light of a distant star. They propelled themselves towards the mouth of the largest cavern, their specialized suits activating upon contact with the harsh environment. The moment they crossed the threshold, Carl's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. He felt the subtle vibrations of the rock beneath his feet, sensed the faint electric charge in the air. The cavern's interior opened up to reveal a breathtaking sight, vast networks of crystalline structures pulsating with an otherworldly energy. "Lena, are you seeing this?" Carl's voice crackled through the comm system. "Affirmative," she replied, her binary eyes scanning the surroundings. "These crystals appear to be the source of the energy signatures we detected earlier." They moved deeper into the cavern, carefully collecting samples of the luminescent crystals. As Carl handled each piece, he felt a strange resonance within his body, as if the crystals were responding to his touch. Suddenly, a faint vibration caught Carl's attention. It was barely perceptible, but his heightened senses picked it up clearly. "Lena, do you feel that?" She tilted her head, processing. "Negative. My sensors are not detecting any unusual vibrations." "It's coming from deeper within the asteroid," Carl said, his voice tight with concentration. "We should investigate." Following Carl's instincts, they ventured further into the twisting passages. The vibration grew stronger, guiding them to a hidden crevice. As they squeezed through, they found themselves face to face with an artificial structure embedded in the rock. "Zarkoth architecture," Lena confirmed, her voice tinged with apprehension. The structure's smooth, angular surfaces contrasted sharply with the rough asteroid walls. An airlock stood before them, its control panel glowing faintly. "Can you interface with it?" Carl asked, studying the alien technology. Lena stepped forward, her fingers extending delicate filaments that connected with the control panel. Her eyes pulsed rapidly as she processed the alien code. "I can bypass their security protocols," she said. "But Carl, we should proceed with caution. We don't know what we'll find inside." The airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. As they entered, Carl's suit sensors indicated a pressurized environment with breathable atmosphere. They removed their helmets, the air tasting stale and metallic. The abandoned Zarkoth outpost stretched before them, a maze of laboratories and living quarters. Signs of a hasty evacuation were everywhere. Scattered data pads, half-eaten meals, personal belongings left behind. As they explored, Carl's physiological changes intensified. The energy signatures from the crystals seemed to resonate with his altered body chemistry. Suddenly, a vivid flash of insight struck him, causing him to stumble. Carl! Lena caught him, steadying his swaying form. What's happening? He blinked, trying to process the flood of images and information. I can see their research, he gasped. The Zarth, they were experimenting with the crystals, trying to weaponize them. Lena's eyes pulsed rapidly, her own system struggling to keep up with the influx of data through their neural link. The energy, it's overwhelming my neural network, she said, her voice strained. Carl realized they needed to stabilize their connection. He guided Lena to a secluded chamber, away from the main research areas. We need to sync, he said, his voice low and urgent. It's the only way to process all this information. As they initiated intimate contact, the world around them seemed to fade away. The combination of the crystal energy, Carl's evolving physiology, and Lena's binary neural structure created an unprecedented merging of their consciousnesses. In this shared mental space, they saw the full scope of the Zarth's plans. The crystals held the potential to create a weapon capable of destabilizing planetary cores. But there was more, a fatal flaw in the design, one that could lead to catastrophic consequences if the weapon were ever deployed. As their connection deepened, Carl and Lena became aware of a new dimension to their bond. Thoughts and sensations flowed freely between them, even as their physical forms remained separate. The intensity of the merge began to subside, leaving them with a wealth of crucial information. The Zarth planned to return in force, to retrieve their research and complete their weapon. They had to warn Nexus 7. As they hurriedly gathered essential data and samples, the asteroid shuddered violently. The removal of crystal samples had triggered a chain reaction, destabilizing the entire structure. "We need to move now," Carl shouted, grabbing Lena's hand as they sprinted back through the twisting corridors. The caverns were collapsing around them, massive crystal shards raining down. Their newfound connection allowed them to navigate the chaos with uncanny precision, anticipating falling rocks and finding safe passages moments before they appeared. They burst out of the cavern entrance, pushing off from the asteroid's surface towards the waiting Stardancer. Lieutenant Kovach's voice crackled over the comm system. "About time! We've got to get out of here!" As soon as they were aboard, Kovach initiated emergency launch procedures. The asteroid field had become a deadly obstacle course, smaller rocks colliding and shattering into deadly projectiles. "Kovach, 3 degrees port," Carl called out, his enhanced senses allowing him to perceive safe routes before the ship's sensors could detect them. The Stardancer wove through the disintegrating field, narrowly avoiding collision after collision. As they finally broke free, a massive explosion lit up space behind them. The chain reaction had reached its climax, destroying a significant portion of the crystal-laden asteroids and any remaining Zarth technology. As the Stardancer set course back to Nexus 7, the team exchanged glances, the weight of their discoveries settling over them. The Zarth threat, the power of the crystal energy, and the evolving bond between Carl and Lena, all of it would have far-reaching consequences. Carl looked at Lena, feeling the hum of their newfound connection. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the Stardancer sped through the vastness of space, the future of human-binar relations, and perhaps the fate of the galactic realm itself, hung in the balance. Balance hung in the balance as the Stardancer raced back to Nexus 7. As they approached the station, an urgent transmission crackled through the ship's comm system. Commander Harper's voice, tense and authoritative, filled the bridge. "Stardancer, this is Nexus 7. We have a critical situation. Long-range scanners have detected a large Zarth fleet entering the system. They're headed straight for the asteroid field. All personnel are to report immediately upon docking. Prepare for emergency protocols." Carl and Lena exchanged glances, their newfound connection allowing them to share a moment of silent understanding. The gravity of their discovery had just increased tenfold. Lieutenant Kovach's hands flew over the controls, pushing the Stardancer to its limits. "Hold on tight," he called out. "We're coming in hot." The ship shuddered as it decelerated rapidly, expertly maneuvering through Nexus 7's docking procedures. As soon as they touched down, a team of security personnel swarmed the airlock. "This way," a stern-faced officer ordered, ushering Carl, Lena, Dr. Jiang, and Lieutenant Kovac through the bustling corridors of the station. They were led to a secure briefing room where Commander Harper stood at the head of a table surrounded by top scientists and military advisors. The atmosphere was thick with tension. "Report," Harper demanded as soon as they entered. Carl stepped forward, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on him. He took a deep breath and began recounting their discoveries. As he spoke, he felt Lena's presence in his mind, their shared experience, allowing him to provide details with unprecedented clarity. "The asteroid field contains vast deposits of an energy-rich crystal," Carl explained. "But that's not all. We found an abandoned Zarkoth outpost. They were conducting weapons research, attempting to harness the crystal's power for destructive purposes." Dr. Zhang chimed in, presenting her analysis of the crystal samples. "The energy potential of these crystals is unlike anything we've ever seen," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "With proper refinement, they could revolutionize our energy production. They might even solve Earth's energy crisis." A murmur of excitement rippled through the room, but Zhang wasn't finished. "However," she continued, her tone grave, "if weaponized as the Zarkoth intended, the consequences would be catastrophic. We're talking about weapons capable of destabilizing planetary cores." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Harper's face was grim as he processed the information. Suddenly, Carl felt a strange sensation rippling through his body. He looked down to see his skin developing a faint, bioluminescent pattern, similar to Lena's. It pulsed softly, visible even through his clothing. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Dr. Mitchell, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Commander, I think we need to discuss the ongoing changes in Carl's physiology." Before Harper could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. "Zarkoth fleet approaching," a computerized voice announced. "All personnel to battle stations." Harper's voice cut through the chaos. "We don't have time for debates. We need to act now." He turned to address the room. "I'm ordering an immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. We need to prepare Nexus 7 for a potential attack." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces in the room before settling on Carl and Lena. "We also need to destroy the remaining crystals in the asteroid field. We can't let them fall into Zarkoth hands." Carl felt a surge of perseverance. "I volunteer to lead the mission," he said, stepping forward. "My enhanced abilities in connection with Lena make us the most qualified for this operation." Objections erupted from several staff members, but Harper silenced them with a raised hand. "Agreed," he said, his eyes locked on Carl. "Assemble a small team of specialists. You leave as soon as you're ready." As the room emptied, Dr. Mitchell approached Carl, his face etched with concern. "Carl, I need to speak with you privately," he said, leading him to a quiet corner. "Your latest test results are concerning," Mitchell said, his voice low. "The changes in your physiology are accelerating at an alarming rate. Your continued intimate contact with Lena, it could lead to irreversible alterations to your DNA. You might become something not entirely human." Carl felt the weight of the doctor's words settle on him. He glanced at Lena, who was engaged in conversation with Commander Harper across the room. Their connection had become so integral to his existence, but at what cost? As Carl grappled with this revelation, Lena approached, her binary eyes pulsing rapidly. "Carl," she said, her voice filled with an unfamiliar tremor, "I'm experiencing difficulties. My neural network, it's incorporating human emotional processing. I'm feeling things I don't understand." Before Carl could respond, Major Elena Vasquez, the station's chief of security, burst into the room. "Commander," she called out, her face taut with urgency, "we've uncovered evidence of a Zarkoth sleeper agent among the crew." The room erupted into chaos once again. Carl stood at the center of it all, his mind racing. The mission, his evolving body, his relationship with Lena, and now the threat of sabotage. Every aspect of his world seemed to be shifting beneath his feet. As the alarms continued to blare, Carl made his way to the Stardancer's airlock. He stood there, suited up for the covert operation, with Lena by his side. The rest of the specialist team filed in behind them, each face a mask of perseverance and apprehension. As the airlock doors began to close, Carl took one last look at Nexus 7. The station that had been his home now seemed alien and uncertain. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, knowing that his actions in the next few hours could determine the fate of not just Nexus 7, but possibly the entire galaxy. The airlock sealed with a hiss, and Carl turned to face his team. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever he might become, there was no turning back now. The mission had begun. Begun. The Star Dancer glided silently away from Nexus 7, its hull gleaming in the starlight as it carried Carl, Lena, and their specialist team towards the asteroid field. The tense atmosphere inside the ship was palpable as each team member prepared for the dangerous mission ahead. Carl stood at the viewport, his newly acquired bioluminescent patterns pulsing softly beneath his suit. He felt a gentle touch on his arm and turned to see Lena, her binary eyes flickering with concern. "Your physiology continues to evolve," she observed, her voice low. "Are you experiencing any discomfort?" Carl shook his head, marveling at the intricate patterns dancing across his skin. As he focused on them, he realized he could control their intensity and movement. An idea struck him, and he concentrated on forming a specific pattern. Lena's eyes widened. "Carl, I understood that," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You communicated through light patterns, just like my people do." Before Carl could respond, Lieutenant Kovac called out from the cockpit, "Approaching the asteroid field, multiple Zarkoth ships detected." The team gathered around the tactical display, tension evident in their postures. Dr. Zhang pointed to a cluster of energy readings. "That's where the highest concentration of crystals should be." Sergeant Davis nodded grimly. "And likely where we'll find the heaviest Zarkoth presence?" Carl's enhanced senses kicked in as they entered the field, allowing him to perceive safe routes through the debris. "Kovac, 30 degrees starboard, then a sharp dive," he called out. The Star Dancer responded smoothly, weaving between massive rocks and avoiding detection. As they approached a particularly dense section of the field, Carl spotted an opening. "There," he said, pointing. "It's different from our previous entry point, but it should lead us into the caverns." Kovac expertly maneuvered the ship into the hidden entrance, setting it down in a natural hangar formed by the asteroid's interior. As the team prepared to disembark, Carl addressed them. "We'll split into 2 groups," he said, his voice firm. "Lena, Dr. Zhang, and I will head for the crystal deposits. Sergeant Davis, Corporal Rodriguez, secure our exit route. Kovac, stay with the ship and be ready for a quick evacuation." The team nodded, their faces set with purpose. As they moved through the twisting corridors of the asteroid, Carl and Lena took point, using their silent communication to coordinate movements and avoid Zarkoth patrols. Dr. Zhang followed close behind, her specialized equipment quietly beeping as it detected crystal concentrations. "We're close," she whispered, gesturing towards a large chamber ahead. As they entered, the sight took their breath away. Massive crystal formations jutted from the walls and ceiling, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. But the beauty was marred by the presence of Zarkoth workers methodically harvesting the crystals. Carl's mind raced as he assessed the situation. He turned to Lena and Dr. Zhang, his skin flickering with a pattern that Lena quickly interpreted. "Carl will plant the charges," Lena whispered to Dr. Zhang. "We need to create a distraction." Dr. Zhang nodded, reaching into her pack. She pulled out a small device and activated it, sending it skittering across the chamber floor. It emitted a high-pitched whine that immediately drew the attention of the Zarkoth workers. As the aliens moved to investigate, Carl sprinted from cover to cover, his enhanced strength and agility allowing him to move with incredible speed and precision. He placed explosive charges at key points around the chamber, his heart pounding with exertion and adrenaline. Just as he placed the final charge, a commanding voice echoed through the chamber. "Intruders! Capture them alive!" Carl spun to see an imposing Zarkoth figure enter the chamber, flanked by heavily armed guards. The alien's eyes locked onto Carl, a look of recognition and hunger in their depths. I am Commander Vexor, the Zarkoth announced, his voice filled with cruel amusement. And you, human, are a most interesting specimen. Your capture will advance our research significantly. Carl's muscles tensed, ready for action. He glanced at Lena, who had taken a defensive stance beside Dr. Zhang. Through their connection, he could sense her newfound emotions. Fear, anger, and a fierce persistence. As Vexor's guards advanced, Carl acted instinctively. He leapt forward, his movements a blur of speed and precision. His fist connected with the first guard's faceplate, shattering it and sending the alien reeling. Lena joined the fray, her combat programming enhanced by her growing emotional capacity. She moved with a grace and ferocity that caught the Zarkoth off guard, taking down 2 guards in quick succession. Dr. Zhang, though not a fighter, contributed by using her equipment to create electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Zarkoth weapons. The battle raged across the crystal chamber, a deadly dance of human ingenuity and Zarkoth technology. Carl found himself facing off against Vexor, the Zarkoth commander's combat skills a match for Carl's enhanced abilities. As they fought, a stray energy blast from one of the guards' weapons struck a large crystal formation. The crystal shattered, releasing a blinding surge of energy that set off a chain reaction throughout the chamber. "Fall back!" Carl shouted, realizing the danger. He grabbed Lena and Dr. Zhang, using his enhanced strength to propel them towards the exit as the cavern began to collapse around them. As they raced through the corridors, Carl's mind worked furiously. The unplanned detonation might not be enough to destroy all the crystals. He knew what he had to do. Reaching a junction, Carl made a split-second decision. "Lena, Dr. Zhang, continue to the ship," he said, his voice firm. "I need to go back and make sure the charges detonate properly." Lena's eyes pulsed rapidly, her newly developed emotions causing her voice to quaver. "Carl, no, it's too dangerous." Carl placed a hand on her shoulder, his skin glowing with patterns that conveyed his thoughts more clearly than words ever could. "I'll make it back," he promised. "Now go." As Lena and Dr. Zhang reluctantly continued toward the Star Dancer, Carl turned and sprinted back towards the heart of the asteroid. The corridors were becoming increasingly unstable, rocks and crystal shards raining down around him. His enhanced physiology allowed him to navigate the treacherous environment, leaping over chasms and ducking under falling debris. But he could feel the strain on his body, the human core of his being pushed to its limits. Finally, he reached the main detonator. With a deep breath, he activated it, starting the countdown. As he turned to make his escape, he found his path blocked by a familiar figure. Commander Vexor stood before him, his alien features set in a grim smile. "Impressive, human," the Zarkoth said, his voice carrying even over the rumble of the impending explosion. "You've proven yourself to be far more than we anticipated." Carl tensed, ready for another fight, but Vexor held up a hand. "I offer you a choice," the alien continued. "Join us. Let us unlock the full potential of your transformation, or die here, buried in this asteroid's destruction." The rumble grew louder, the ground beneath their feet beginning to shudder violently. Carl knew he had only seconds to decide. His mind raced, weighing the options before him. The fate of the mission, his own life, and his future with Lena all hung in the balance. As the first massive chunks of rock began to fall from the ceiling, Carl made his choice. Carl's eyes locked with Vexor's, his mind racing through the possibilities. In that fleeting moment, he saw a future of power and knowledge, but at the cost of his humanity. With a slight shake of his head, he made his choice. "I choose my own path," Carl declared, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Before Vexor could react, Carl's skin erupted in a dazzling display of bioluminescence. The sudden burst of light overwhelmed the Zarkoth's sensitive eyes, causing them to recoil in pain and confusion. Seizing the opportunity, Carl darted past the disoriented aliens and sprinted down the crumbling corridor. His newly enhanced physiology kicked into overdrive as he navigated the treacherous terrain. Muscles coiled and released with newfound strength, propelling him forward with inhuman speed. A chasm opened before him, but Carl didn't hesitate. He leapt, sailing through the air and landing with cat-like grace on the other side. As he ran, Carl felt his body changing. His skin hardened, forming a protective layer against the falling debris. His reflexes sharpened, allowing him to dodge rocks and crystal shards with uncanny precision. Each step brought new sensations, his body adapting to the extreme conditions in real time. Aboard the Stardancer, Lena's binary eyes flickered erratically. Her body convulsed, circuits misfiring as her neural network destabilized. Dr. Zhang worked frantically, trying to stabilize Lena's systems. Her connection to Carl, Dr. Zhang explained to Lieutenant Kovac, who was preparing for emergency takeoff. The separation is causing severe physiological distress. Kovac glanced at the asteroid through the view screen, his lips pursed. We can't wait much longer. This whole place is coming apart. Back in the asteroid, Carl reached a junction in the tunnels. His enhanced senses detected movement ahead. A group of Zarkoth soldiers blocking his path to freedom. At their lead stood a female Zarkoth, her posture radiating authority and danger. "I am Lieutenant Zarkus," she announced, her voice carrying over the rumble of the collapsing asteroid. "Your escape ends here, human." Carl's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, he felt a surge of information flood his consciousness. Schematics of Zarkoth technology, weak points in their armor, vulnerabilities in their weapon systems. Somehow, his connection with Lena was providing him with crucial intelligence. Without hesitation, Carl charged forward. Zarkus fired her weapon, but Carl was already moving. He rolled under the energy blast, coming up directly in front of a Zarkoth soldier. With precise movements, he disabled the alien's weapon and used it as a shield against the others. The battle was a blur of motion. Carl's enhanced strength and agility allowed him to move faster than the Zarkoth could track. He targeted weak points in their armor, disabling their weapons with surgical precision. As the fight intensified, Carl felt a new power surging within him. The nearby crystals pulsed with energy, and he found he could manipulate it. Concentrating, he formed a shimmering force field around himself, deflecting Zarkoth energy blasts. Zarkus, realizing the tide of battle had turned, unleashed a barrage of advanced weaponry. Energy beams crisscrossed the cavern, threatening to bring down the entire structure. Carl knew he had to end this quickly. Focusing all his newfound abilities, Carl channeled the energy from the surrounding crystals. The air crackled with power as he released a massive shockwave. The blast sent Zarkas and her remaining soldiers flying, clearing a path to the surface. Carl sprinted towards freedom, the asteroid disintegrating around him. He emerged onto the surface, his eyes immediately locking onto the Stardancer hovering nearby. The ship's engines strained against the increasing gravitational pull of the collapsing asteroid. Lieutenant Kovac executed a daring maneuver, bringing the Stardancer as close as he dared. Carl took a deep breath, knowing what he had to do. He sprinted towards the edge of the asteroid, his enhanced muscles coiling for one final desperate leap. Carl launched himself into the void, the vacuum of space enveloping him. For a heart-stopping moment, he floated between certain death and potential salvation. His fingers grasped the edge of the Stardancer's airlock, his body dangling precariously as the ship began to pull away. Inside the Stardancer, Lena's eyes suddenly focused. Despite her weakened state, she pushed herself towards the airlock, drawn by an inexplicable connection to Carl. As she moved, Carl felt a surge of strength. Their synchronized actions created a harmonic resonance, allowing Carl to pull himself inside the ship just as Kovac initiated emergency thrust. The Stardancer shot away from the asteroid, the team watching in awe as it exploded in a spectacular display of light and energy. Their relief was short-lived, however, as warning alarms blared throughout the ship. "Propulsion system damage," Kovac reported, his hands flying over the controls. "We're adrift." Carl stumbled into the main cabin, his body continuing to change before the team's eyes. His skin took on a metallic sheen, and patterns of light danced across his surface. As he approached Lena, her system stabilized, but the proximity seemed to accelerate Carl's transformation. Dr. Zhang, her eyes glued to the ship's sensors, gasped. "The explosion, it's created some kind of subspace rift. I've never seen anything like it." As the team grappled with their immediate survival and the implications of Carl's evolving form, they found themselves faced with an unprecedented opportunity. The rift before them held the potential for faster-than-light travel, but harnessing it would require a perfect fusion of human intuition and binary processing power. Carl and Lena exchanged glances, their unique bond potentially holding the key to unlocking this new frontier. But first, they had to survive their current predicament, stranded in space, hunted by the Zarth, and racing against their dwindling life support. The Stardancer drifted in the vastness of space, its occupants poised on the brink of either destruction or a new era of interstellar exploration. The next few hours would determine not only their fate, but possibly the future of human-binary relations and the course of galactic history. The Stardancer's hull groaned as it drifted through the vast emptiness of space, its damaged propulsion system rendering it a helpless speck amidst the cosmic backdrop. Inside, the air grew thick with tension as the crew grappled with their dire situation. Carl stumbled to his feet, his newly transformed body still adjusting to its enhanced capabilities. He locked eyes with Lena, their unspoken connection palpable in the cramped confines of the ship. "Life support systems are failing," Lieutenant Kovacs announced, his fingers dancing across the flickering control panel. "We've got maybe 6 hours before things get critical." Without hesitation, Carl and Lena moved in unison towards the ship's main computer interface. Carl's skin pulsed with an otherworldly glow, while Lena's eyes emitted a soft blue light. As they placed their hands on the console, an electric current seemed to flow between them and the ship's systems. "What are they doing?" Sergeant Davis asked, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Dr. Zhang held up a hand, her eyes wide with fascination. "They're interfacing with the ship on a level I've never seen before. Look." The ship's readouts began to stabilize, life support systems coming back online one by one. Carl's bioluminescent patterns shifted and changed, matching the rhythms of the ship's power fluctuations. Lena's binary code flowed across her skin, merging seamlessly with Carl's luminescence. "Oxygen levels rising," Kovacs reported, a note of relief in his voice. "Power distribution normalizing." As Carl and Lena worked to stabilize the ship, Dr. Zhang turned her attention to the swirling vortex of energy outside. She gasped as her instruments recorded unprecedented readings. "This subspace rift," she muttered, "it's not just a spatial anomaly. It's emitting some kind of radiation I've never encountered before." Carl suddenly jerked away from the console, his body convulsing. His skin rippled, muscle fibers visibly thickening beneath the surface. Lena reached out to steady him, her touch sending sparks of energy between them. "The radiation," Dr. Zhang realized, "it's accelerating Carl's transformation." Lieutenant Kovacs saw an opportunity amidst the chaos. With expert precision, he fired the Stardancer's maneuvering thrusters, inching the ship closer to the subspace rift. "What are you doing?" Corporal Rodriguez demanded. "Getting us a better look at our ticket home," Kovacs replied, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex. As the Stardancer drew nearer to the rift, the ship's systems fluctuated wildly. Lights flickered and control panels sparked. Carl and Lena redoubled their efforts, their bodies now glowing in perfect synchronization with the rift's pulsations. Suddenly, Sergeant Davis's head snapped up. "I'm picking up a signal," he announced, adjusting the communications array. "It's faint, but it's coming from a nearby asteroid." The crew gathered around the display, tension mounting as Davis worked to clean up the transmission. As the static cleared, their blood ran cold. The distress call was unmistakably Zarth in origin. "They survived," Corporal Rodriguez whispered, her hand tightening on her weapon. A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. They were stranded, their ship barely functioning, with potential Zarth survivors nearby. The moral quandary deeply affected on each of them. Before they could debate their next move, Carl let out a guttural cry. His body arched backwards, energy crackling across his skin. The rift outside pulsed in response, bathing the ship in waves of unknown radiation. Lena rushed to Carl's side, her own form beginning to shift and change. As their bodies touched, a surge of energy rippled through the ship. Dormant systems sprang to life, and the Stardancer's engines hummed with renewed power. In that moment of connection, something profound passed between Carl and Lena. Their consciousnesses merged, human intuition blending with binar precision. They saw each other not just as they were, but as they could be. A new form of hybrid, bridging the gap between their species. The intensity of their union sent shockwaves through the ship's systems. Kovacs seized the opportunity, quickly bringing the short-range communications back online. His fingers flew across the console as he composed a desperate message to Nexus 7. Commander Harper, this is the Star Dancer. We are stranded near a subspace anomaly, requesting immediate assistance. Be advised, possible Zarkoth presence in the area. As the message beamed out into space, Dr. Zhang made a startling discovery. Her eyes widened as she pored over the latest data from the rift. This is incredible, she breathed. The energy signature Carl and Lena are emitting, it's nearly identical to the rift itself. They could potentially act as living conduits, channeling the rift's energy to power our systems, maybe even create a stable wormhole. The possibilities were staggering, but so were the risks. Using Carl and Lena in this way could push their transformations past the point of no return. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the decision bearing down on them. Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Kovacs' face paled as he read the sensor data. We've got company, he announced grimly. Zarkoth scout ship, approaching fast, and it's not alone. I'm picking up a signal from Nexus 7. Looks like Commander Harper's rescue operation is on its way. The crew of the Star Dancer found themselves at the center of a cosmic storm, with forces converging from all sides. The Zarkoth, driven by their insatiable hunger for power and knowledge, raced towards them. From the opposite direction, the hope of rescue from their own kind approached. And there, suspended in the void between these opposing forces, floated the Star Dancer. Its systems pulsed with the combined energy of Carl and Lena, two beings caught between human and binar, on the cusp of becoming something entirely new. As the Zarkoth ship drew nearer, its weapons charging, the crew of the Star Dancer faced a moment of truth. They had to decide and quickly, whether to risk everything on the untested potential of Carl and Lena's newfound abilities, or to face the coming storm with what little resources they had left. The universe held its breath, waiting to see which way the scales of fate would tip. The crew's momentary indecision shattered as the Zarkoth ship's weapons flared to life. Energy beams lanced through space, barely missing the Star Dancer's hull. Evasive maneuvers, Lieutenant Kovacs shouted, his hands flying over the controls. The ship lurched, straining against its damaged propulsion system. Carl and Lena broke their connection with the ship's systems, stumbling as the deck shifted beneath them. Dr. Zhang rushed to steady them, her eyes wide with concern as she observed their rapidly changing forms. We need to buy time, Sergeant Davis growled, sprinting to the weapons station. His fingers danced across the interface, bringing the Star Dancer's defensive systems online. As Davis returned fire, Corporal Rodriguez's eyes glazed over, her newly enhanced precognitive abilities kicking in. Port side, she yelled. They're targeting our life support. Kovacs reacted instantly, rolling the ship to present its most armored face to the incoming barrage. The Star Dancer shuddered under the impact, but the critical systems held. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Zhang's voice cut through the din. I've got it, she exclaimed, her fingers flying over her datapad. The rift's radiation. We can use it to power the ship, but we need a conduit. All eyes turned to Carl and Lena, their bodies now pulsing with otherworldly energy. You mean us, Carl said, his voice resonating with newfound power. Before anyone could respond, a new voice crackled over the comm system. Star Dancer, this is Dr. Elena Volkov from Nexus 7. Do you copy? Lieutenant Kovacs exchanged glances with the crew before responding. We read you, Dr. Volkov. We're in a bit of a situation here. I know, Volkov replied, her voice tense. I've been monitoring your telemetry. I believe I can help stabilize Carl and Lena's transformation, but I need detailed scans of their current state. Carl stepped forward, his skin rippling with bioluminescent patterns. How do we do that? There was a pause before Volkov answered. The scans require intimate physical contact between you and Lena. It's the only way to get an accurate reading of your evolving physiologies. The implications hung heavy in the air as another blast rocked the ship. "We don't have time for this," Sergeant Davis growled, returning fire at the Zarkoth vessel. "Wait," Dr. Zhang interjected. "What if we combine both plans? Use Carl and Lena as conduits for the rift's energy while also gathering the data Dr. Volkov needs?" Carl and Lena exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "We'll do it," Lena said, her voice carrying a new, almost musical quality. As the crew scrambled to prepare, the ship's comm system crackled again. A harsh, alien voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, this is Lieutenant Zarkus. Surrender the human-binar hybrids, or we will destroy your ship. You have 1 hour to comply." Kovac muted the transmission, his heart made. "That's our countdown. Let's move." The next few minutes were a flurry of activity. Dr. Zhang and Kovac worked to modify the ship's power systems, creating an interface that could channel energy from Carl and Lena. Davis and Rodriguez fortified their defensive positions, ready to repel any Zarkoth boarding attempts. As the final preparations were made, Carl and Lena were led to a hastily converted chamber. The walls hummed with energy, conduits snaking across the floor to connect with the ship's main power grid. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Zhang asked, her hand hovering over the door control. Carl nodded, his gaze locked with Lena's. "It's our only chance." As the door slid shut, Carl and Lena moved towards each other. Their bodies, now more energy than matter, began to pulse in sync. Carl's bioluminescence intensified, while Lena's skin took on a metallic sheen. Outside, the crew watched in awe as energy readings spiked. The ship's systems, previously on the verge of failure, surged back to life. Lights brightened, and the hum of the engines grew stronger. "It's working!" Kovac exclaimed, his hands flying over the newly responsive controls. "Propulsion is back online." But their elation was short-lived. The Zarkoth ship, sensing the change, increased its assault. Energy beams sliced through space, impacting the Stardancer's shields with increasing frequency. Inside the chamber, Carl and Lena's forms began to blur, the boundaries between them becoming indistinct. Their consciousness merged, human intuition blending with binar precision. Through their connection, they felt the ship around them, sensed the approaching danger, and understood their role in the unfolding drama. As the Zarkoth ship closed in, its weapons charging for a final, devastating strike, the crew of the Stardancer held their breath. The fate of their mission, their lives, and potentially the future of human-binar relations hung in the balance, all dependent on the mysterious transformation taking place behind closed doors. In the chamber, bathed in the otherworldly glow of the spatial rift, Carl and Lena's merger reached its climax. A burst of energy exploded outward, coursing through the ship's systems and beyond. The Stardancer's engines roared to life, propelling the ship forward with unprecedented speed. As they hurtled towards the unknown, the crew braced themselves. The Zarkoth ship loomed behind them, the spatial rift pulsed ahead, and in the heart of their vessel, a new form of life was taking shape, one that could change the course of galactic history forever. The surge of energy from Carl and Lena's fusion propelled the Stardancer forward with unprecedented speed. The ship's hull creaked and groaned under the strain as it hurtled towards the spatial rift, leaving the pursuing Zarkoth vessel momentarily stunned. Inside the specially prepared chamber, Carl and Lena's bodies began to blur at the edges, their forms seeming to meld into one another. The room pulsed with an otherworldly light, alternating between Carl's bioluminescent glow and Lena's metallic sheen. On the bridge, Dr. Zhang's eyes widened as she monitored the rapidly fluctuating energy readings. "The power levels are off the charts!" she exclaimed, her fingers flying over the control panel. "All systems are coming back online, but the surge is overloading our circuits." Lieutenant Kovac gripped the newly responsive controls, his enhanced piloting instincts kicking in as he prepared for potential evasive maneuvers. "We're not out of this yet," he warned, his gaze fixed on the approaching Zarkoth ship. Sergeant Davis sprang into action, his augmented reflexes allowing him to activate the ship's defensive shields mere seconds before the first volley of Zarkoth energy blasts reached them. The impacts reverberated through the ship, but the shields held firm. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the Star Dancer. Alarms blared as the experimental, faster-than-light drive engaged unexpectedly, triggered by the power spike from Carl and Lena's energy transfer. "What's happening?" Corporal Rodriguez shouted over the din, her enhanced senses overwhelmed by the cascading sensory input. Before anyone could respond, space itself seemed to twist around them. A swirling vortex of light and energy enveloped the Star Dancer, pulling it into its depths. Through the view screen, they watched in awe as the Zarkoth ship was caught in the event horizon and dragged along with them. Time lost all meaning as they hurtled through the wormhole. Moments stretched into what felt like hours, the crew experiencing a surreal sensation of both compression and expansion. Dr. Zhang's mind raced with new theories and insights, the nature of space-time unfolding before her in ways she had never imagined. Lieutenant Kovacs found himself merging with the ship's controls, his consciousness expanding to encompass every system. He guided the Star Dancer through the turbulent passage with impossible precision, avoiding gravitational eddies and temporal distortions that threatened to tear them apart. In the chamber, Carl and Lena's transformation accelerated. Carl's human features blurred, his skin developing intricate, pulsing, circuit-like patterns. Lena's form became more fluid, her metallic sheen spreading across her entire body. Their minds intertwined, creating a shared consciousness that bridged the gap between human intuition and binar logic. With a final wrenching lurch, the wormhole spat them out into unknown space. The Star Dancer emerged first, its systems supercharged by the residual energy of the transit. Kovacs' hands danced over the controls, quickly assessing their surroundings. I don't believe it," he breathed, staring at the readouts. "We've traveled an impossible distance. These star patterns don't match anything in our database." Dr. Zhang pored over the sensor data, her face paling. "It's not just distance," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "According to these readings, we've traveled through time. We're decades in the future." Before the implications could sink in, the Zarkoth ship burst from the wormhole behind them. Its hull sparked and smoked, clearly damaged by the journey. The comm system crackled to life, and a desperate voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, this is Lieutenant Zarkus." The alien commander's voice wavered, all previous aggression gone. "Our life support systems are critical. We require immediate assistance." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, the sudden role reversal leaving them momentarily stunned. Their contemplation was interrupted as the door to the specialized chamber slid open with a hiss. Carl and Lena stepped onto the bridge, but they were fundamentally changed. Their bodies seemed to shimmer, neither fully solid nor entirely energy. Intricate patterns danced across their skin, a mesmerizing blend of bioluminescence and metallic sheen. Their eyes, now pools of swirling light, surveyed the bridge with an otherworldly awareness. "We understand now," they spoke in unison, their voices harmonizing in an impossible chord. "We see the threads of space and time, the connections between all things." The crew stared in awe at the hybrid beings before them, the full weight of their situation crashing down. They were lost in time and space, faced with a desperate enemy turned potential ally, and now host to a new form of life that defied comprehension. As Carl and Lena began to explain the insights gained from their transformation, alarms blared once again. The Zarkoth ship's distress beacon pulsed urgently, a stark reminder of the immediate crisis at hand. Lieutenant Kovacs turned to the others, his expression grim. "We need to make a decision, and fast. Do we help them?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the crew of the Star Dancer faced the first of many challenges in the strange new future they found themselves thrust into. The question hung in the air for only a moment before Captain Harper's voice cut through the tension. "We help them," she said firmly. "Whatever our past differences, we can't leave them to die." Carl and Lena, their forms still shimmering with otherworldly energy, nodded in unison. "We sense the interconnectedness of all things," they said, their voices harmonizing in an impossible chord. "Helping the Zarkoth is part of a greater cosmic harmony." Lieutenant Kovacs nodded, his hands already moving across the controls. "Initiating docking procedures," he announced, guiding the Star Dancer closer to the damaged Zarkoth vessel. As the ships drew near, the crew watched through the view screen as a flexible docking tube extended from the Star Dancer, creating a sealed passage between the two vessels. The connection was made with a soft thud that reverberated through both ships. "Docking complete," Kovacs reported, "atmosphere equalizing." Moments later, the airlock hissed open, revealing Lieutenant Zarkus and a small group of Zarkoth survivors. The alien beings stumbled into the Star Dancer, their usual imposing presence diminished by injury and exhaustion. Dr. Zhang and Sergeant Davis stepped forward, their initial wariness giving way to professional concern as they assessed the Zarkoth's condition. "This way," Dr. Zhang said, gesturing towards the medical bay. "We need to stabilize your life signs." As the injured aliens were led away, Carl and Lena moved towards the ship's main computer interface. Their movements were fluid and synchronized, as if they shared a single nervous system. The crew watched in amazement as the hybrid couple placed their hands on the console, their skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to flow into the ship's systems. "We are accessing the navigation data." Carl and Lena spoke simultaneously, their voices carrying an eerie resonance. "We can see our location in the cosmos." Lieutenant Kovacs leaned in, his eyes widening as he interpreted the data streaming across the screen. "This can't be right," he muttered, double-checking the readings. "According to this, we're in a galaxy that's millions of light years from Earth. It's not even in our star charts." The implications of this revelation rippled through the bridge crew. They were farther from home than any human had ever traveled, lost in an unexplored corner of the universe. Dr. Zhang, who had returned from the medical bay, approached the console with a look of intense concentration. "The wormhole we traveled through," she began, her mind racing with possibilities. "It wasn't just a spatial phenomenon. Based on these readings, we've also moved through time. We're decades into the future." As the crew grappled with this staggering information, Carl and Lena's bodies began to emit a soft, pulsating glow. The hybrid couple turned to face the others, their eyes swirling pools of light. "We can see the pathways," they said, their voices filled with wonder. "The threads of space-time that connect all things. We may be able to create stable wormholes to bridge vast distances in the blink of an eye." Before anyone could fully process this revelation, Corporal Rodriguez gasped, her enhanced senses picking up something beyond normal perception. Her eyes glazed over as a vivid vision took hold. "Ships," she whispered, her voice tight with tension. "A fleet of ships unlike anything we've ever seen. They're coming this way." As if in response to her words, the ship's long-range sensors lit up, confirming the approach of multiple vessels. The crew huddled around the display, staring at the unfamiliar configurations of the approaching fleet. "Those aren't Zarkoth ships," Lieutenant Zarkus said, her voice weak but filled with awe as she rejoined them on the bridge. "I've never seen anything like them." Corporal Rodriguez's eyes cleared, but her expression remained troubled. "In my vision, I saw beings of immense power. They could manipulate energy and matter in ways I can't even describe, and they're drawn to us, to Carl and Lena." The hybrid couple exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. "We have a proposal," they said, turning to face Captain Harper. "We believe we can establish communication with these beings before they arrive. By projecting our consciousness through the ship's communication array, we may be able to make first contact and understand their intentions." Captain Harper hesitated, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. "Do it," she finally said, "but be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As Carl and Lena prepared for their unprecedented form of communication, Lieutenant Zarkus stepped forward, her face etched with concern. "Wait," she said, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "There are legends among my people, tales of godlike beings who once ruled the galaxy. If these ships belong to them—" Her warning was cut short as Carl and Lena began their consciousness projection. The interior of the Star Dancer was suddenly bathed in ethereal light, patterns of energy dancing across the walls and ceiling. The hybrid couple's physical forms became translucent, their merged consciousness expanding beyond the confines of the ship. The crew watched in stunned silence as tendrils of light extended from Carl and Lena, reaching out into the vast expanse of space. The ship's systems fluctuated wildly, power surging and ebbing in response to the incredible energies being channeled. Suddenly, the approaching fleet came to an abrupt halt, forming a perfect sphere around the Star Dancer and the damaged Zarkoth ship. A beam of intense, multicolored light engulfed both vessels, scanning them with technology far beyond human or Zarkoth understanding. The bridge crew held their breath, the fate of their ships, their lives, and possibly the future of intergalactic relations hanging in the balance. Carl and Lena's consciousness hovered between their physical forms and the vast expanse of space, a bridge between humanity and this new, potentially godlike civilization. As the scan intensified, the Star Dancer's systems began to react in unexpected ways. Displays flickered with strange symbols, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. The crew exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to expect next from this unprecedented encounter. As the crew braced themselves for whatever might come next, the multicolored light intensified, enveloping both the Star Dancer and the damaged Zarkoth ship in its otherworldly glow. A sudden sensation of weightlessness swept through the vessels, causing the crew members to float momentarily above their stations. The low, resonant hum that had filled the air shifted into a harmonic frequency, vibrating through the hulls of both ships with an eerie precision. Lieutenant Kovacs gripped his console, his eyes wide as he watched the sensor readings. "Captain, we're moving, but I'm not detecting any conventional propulsion." Indeed, both the Star Dancer and the Zarkoth ship were being gently pulled toward the center of the alien formation. The crew watched in awe as the largest of the alien vessels began to unfold like a blooming flower, revealing a cavernous docking bay large enough to accommodate both ships. Captain Harper's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. All hands, prepare for docking procedures. We're about to make first contact. As the ships were drawn into the massive alien vessel, Carl and Lena's merged consciousness continued to process the vast amounts of data streaming in from the alien fleet. Their shimmering forms pulsed with newfound knowledge. "They call themselves the Luminari," Carl and Lena spoke in unison, their voices resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "They are an ancient race of energy manipulators who have observed the development of younger species across the galaxy for millennia." The docking bay of the Luminari ship was a sight beyond imagination. Walls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal surrounded them, creating an ever-changing landscape of light and shadow. As the artificial gravity stabilized and the multicolored light faded, the crews of both ships prepared to disembark. The airlock hissed open, and Captain Harper led his team out onto the deck of the alien vessel. Lieutenant Zarkus and her surviving crew followed close behind, their earlier hostility replaced by a shared sense of wonder and trepidation. As they stepped into the vast space, they were met by a sight that defied description. Tall, slender figures composed of swirling energy patterns approached, their forms vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifting and changing. One of these beings moved forward, its presence commanding attention without a word being spoken. A melodious voice resonated directly in the minds of all present, conveying complex ideas and emotions with startling clarity. "I am Elara, emissary of the Luminari High Council. We welcome you aboard our vessel." Captain Harper stepped forward, his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. "I am Captain Jonathan Harper of the Earth ship Star Dancer. We come in peace and with great curiosity about your people." Elara's form shimmered, patterns of light dancing across its surface in what might have been a gesture of acknowledgement. "We have long awaited this moment, Captain Harper. The convergence of your two species, combined with the unique transformation of your crew members Carl and Lena, has signaled to us that you are ready for the next stage of your evolution." Lieutenant Zarkus, her suspicion evident in her stance, spoke up. "What do you mean by the next stage of our evolution? What do you want from us?" Elara turned its attention to the Zarkoth officer, its voice carrying a note of reassurance. "We offer guidance, Lieutenant Zarkus. The Luminari are not simply an advanced alien race. We are the descendants of countless species who have undergone transformations, similar to that experienced by Carl and Lena." The revelation sent a ripple of shock through both crews. Dr. Zhang stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her initial caution. Are you saying that your species is a collective of merged beings from across the galaxy? Indeed, Dr. Zhang, Elara confirmed, surprising the scientist with its knowledge of her name. Each merger has added to our collective knowledge and abilities, allowing us to transcend the limitations of physical form and manipulate the very fabric of spacetime. As the implications of this statement sank in, Elara continued, we extend an invitation to both humans and Zarkoth. We offer to guide you through the next stage of your evolution, to help you unlock the latent potential within your species. However, this offer comes with a condition. You must set aside your differences and work together towards this common goal. The tension in the air was palpable as the crews processed this information. Captain Harper exchanged glances with his officers, seeing the immense potential for advancement. Lieutenant Zarkus and her crew, however, remained visibly suspicious. Carl and Lena, their hybrid form shimmering with energy, moved forward. We can attest to the incredible potential this transformation holds, they said, their merged voice carrying a weight of experience. We have glimpsed realities beyond our previous understanding. This could be the key to lasting peace between our species. Elara gestured towards a corridor leading deeper into the ship. If you are willing, we have prepared a special chamber where Carl and Lena can fully explore the extent of their transformation. The insights gained there could be crucial in your decision-making process. As discussions began between the human and Zarkoth leaders, Elara guided the hybrid couple to the special chamber. The room pulsed with energy patterns that matched those emanating from Carl and Lena, creating a sense of resonance that seemed to vibrate through their very being. In this nexus, Elara explained, the boundaries between physical form and energy are at their thinnest. Here you can unlock abilities that may prove vital in the challenges ahead. As Carl and Lena entered the chamber, their form began to shimmer and expand, filling the room with a dazzling display of light and energy. The transformation was both beautiful and terrifying, a glimpse into the potential future of both their species. Meanwhile, in the docking bay, tensions between the human and Zarkoth crews reached a critical point. Old grievances bubbled to the surface, threatening to derail the negotiations before they could truly begin. Just as the situation seemed poised to escalate into violence, a wave of calming energy washed over both groups. All eyes turned to see Carl and Lena returning from the special chamber, their merged form radiating an aura of tranquility and understanding. With their newfound abilities, the hybrid couple created a mental link between key members of both crews. Suddenly, humans and Zarkoth alike found themselves experiencing each other's memories and emotions, gaining a profound understanding of their shared hopes and fears. As the empathic connection faded, the atmosphere in the docking bay had transformed. The hostility that had defined their relationship for so long began to give way to a tentative sense of mutual respect and curiosity. Captain Harper stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. I believe we stand at a crossroads, one that will determine the future of both our species. The offer before us is unprecedented, but it also means venturing into the unknown. Lieutenant Zarkus nodded, her earlier suspicion tempered by the shared experience. Our peoples have been enemies for so long. Can we truly set aside our differences and embrace this new path? As the crews of both ships contemplated their next move, Carl and Lena stood ready to guide them towards this new future. Elara and the Luminari waited patiently, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. The decision they would make in the coming moments would not only shape their own destinies, but potentially alter the course of galactic history. The journey of evolution and discovery stood before them, filled with both promise and peril. The tension in the docking bay hung thick in the air as the crews of both ships contemplated their next move. Carl and Lena's hybrid form pulsed with energy, their newfound abilities a testament to the potential that lay before them. Captain Harper exchanged a meaningful glance with Lieutenant Zarkus, both leaders acutely aware of the weight of the decision they faced. Elara's ethereal form shimmered, patiently awaiting their response. The Luminari emissary's presence served as a constant reminder of the evolutionary leap that beckoned. After a moment of contemplation, Captain Harper stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. Emissary Elara, We appreciate your offer and the opportunity it presents. However, this is not a decision we can make lightly or hastily. We need time to process what we've learned and to discuss it among ourselves. Lieutenant Zarkos nodded in agreement, her earlier suspicion tempered by the shared empathic experience. Indeed, this affects the future of both our species. We must approach it with caution and careful consideration. Alara's form rippled in what seemed to be understanding. Your prudence is commendable. Perhaps a more in-depth exploration of our vessel and our ways would aid in your decision-making process. Captain Harper's eyes lit up at the suggestion. That's an excellent idea. In fact, I propose we form a joint human-Zarkoth expedition to explore your ship and learn more about your civilization. The proposal sent a ripple of murmurs through both crews. Lieutenant Zarkos tilted her head, considering the offer. After a moment, she nodded. A wise suggestion, Captain. It would allow us to gather more information and, perhaps, learn to work together. With Ayalara's approval, the two leaders quickly assembled their teams. Dr. Zhang, Lieutenant Kovacs, and Sergeant Davis were selected to represent the humans, while Lieutenant Zarkos chose her most capable officers for the Zarkoth contingent. Carl and Lena, their merged form now radiating with even greater energy, stepped forward. We volunteer to lead the expedition, they said in unison, their voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. Our unique abilities make us ideally suited for this role. As the joint expedition prepared to depart, Alara guided them towards a massive door at the far end of the docking bay. The door towered above them, its surface a swirling pattern of light and shadow. This door, Alara explained, requires simultaneous input from both human and Zarkoth biosignatures to open. It is the first of many challenges you will face on your journey through our vessel. Captain Harper and Lieutenant Zarkos approached the door, eyeing each other warily. Carl Lena's form shimmered between them, their voice gentle but firm. You must synchronize your actions, trust in each other, and in yourselves. With a deep breath, the two leaders reached out, placing their hands on the designated panels. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the panels began to glow, pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. The massive door shuddered and began to slide open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. As they stepped through the threshold, the expedition found themselves surrounded by holographic displays of various alien species. The chamber seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions, filled with shimmering images and data streams. Alara's voice resonated in their minds. Welcome to the Hall of Convergence. Here we record the histories of countless civilizations that have joined the Luminari. As you explore, you will witness the evolutionary journeys of different species, many of which may seem familiar to you. Dr. Zhang's eyes widened as she took in the wealth of information around her. She moved from display to display, her scientific curiosity overriding any lingering caution. As she reached a particular section, she gasped, drawing the attention of the others. Captain, Lieutenant, you need to see this, she called out, her voice tinged with awe and a hint of trepidation. As the group gathered around, they saw holographic models of both human and Zarkoth species. The displays showed various potential futures, branching out like a complex tree of possibilities. These are predictive models, Dr. Zhang explained, her fingers tracing the lines of data. They show different potential evolutionary paths for our species. And look here. She pointed to a particular branch that glowed brighter than the others. This model clearly indicates that cooperation and merger with the Luminari lead to significantly more advanced and peaceful outcomes for both our races. The revelation sent a shockwave through the group. Human and Zarkoth members alike stared at the displays, the implications of what they were seeing slowly sinking in. As they processed this information, Lieutenant Kovacs and a Zarkoth engineer named Kelthor found themselves drawn to a side chamber. Inside, they discovered a sophisticated simulation room filled with holographic interfaces. It appears to be some kind of pilot training facility, Kovacs mused, his hands hovering over the controls. Kelthor's eyes lit up with interest. Shall we test our skills, Lieutenant? I'm curious to see how your piloting techniques compare to ours. What started as a friendly competition quickly evolved into a cooperative effort as they realized the complementary nature of their different approaches to navigation. The simulated Luminari vessels responded to their combined inputs with astonishing precision, achieving maneuvers neither could have managed alone. Meanwhile, Sergeant Davis and his Zarkoth counterpart, a security officer named Vexor, encountered a different kind of challenge. They stumbled upon a Luminari training facility that seemed to adapt to their individual combat styles. As holographic opponents materialized around them, Davis and Vexor found themselves instinctively moving to cover each other's blind spots. The facility's difficulty increased with each successful engagement, forcing them to communicate and coordinate their efforts more closely. After a particularly intense simulation, the two security officers found themselves back to back, breathing heavily but with newfound respect in their eyes. "You fight well, for a human," Vexor said, a hint of amusement in her voice. Davis chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're not so bad yourself, for a Zarkoth." As the expedition regrouped, sharing their experiences and discoveries, Alara led them deeper into the Luminari vessel. The corridors seemed to shift and change around them, leading them to a central chamber that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the chamber stood a device unlike anything they had ever seen. It resembled a pillar of liquid metal, constantly shifting and reforming, emitting a soft, pulsating light. Alara's form expanded, filling the chamber with a gentle glow. "This is the evolutionary catalyst, the key to joining the Luminari. It has the power to accelerate the natural evolutionary process of any species. However, its use requires the unanimous consent of all participants." The revelation sent a ripple of excitement and apprehension through the group. As discussions broke out among both human and Zarkoth members, weighing the potential benefits against the unknown risks, a sudden alarm cut through the air. Alara's form flickered, their voice urgent. "We've detected an incoming vessel, approaching at high speed. It belongs to a species known as the Void Hunters, nomads who seek to prevent other civilizations from achieving higher levels of evolution." The alarm continued to blare as the expedition members exchanged worried glances. The hybrid Lena entity, their merged form now shimmering with nearly unleashed energy, moved to the center of the group. "We stand at a crossroads," they said, their voice carrying the weight of their combined wisdom. "The choice before us is not just about evolution, but about trust and cooperation in the face of a common threat." Captain Harper and Lieutenant Zarkus found themselves standing side by side before the evolutionary catalyst. The device hummed with power, its surface rippling like liquid metal. As the alarm signaling the approach of the Void Hunters grew louder, they reached out, their hands hovering over the activation controls. The fate of both their species hung in the balance as they exchanged a final look, each searching the other's eyes for any sign of doubt or drive. The chamber fell silent, save for the pulsing of the catalyst and the distant wail of alarms, as everyone waited to see what decision would be made. In that instant, their hands moved in perfect synchronization, activating the evolutionary catalyst. A surge of energy erupted from the device, enveloping both the human and Zarkoth crews in a pulsating field of iridescent light. The chamber filled with a low, resonant hum as the liquid metal surface of the catalyst began to ripple with increasing intensity. Lena, their hybrid form already shimmering with latent energy, stepped into the center of the chamber. As the catalyst's power washed over them, their merged body began to resonate, acting as a conduit between the ancient device and the assembled crews. The air crackled with potential, heavy with the promise of imminent change. Dr. Zhang gasped as the first wave of transformation hit her. Her mind expanded, synapses firing at impossible speeds as complex scientific concepts unfolded before her inner eye. Beside her, Lieutenant Kovac stumbled, his consciousness suddenly merging with the ship's systems. His eyes glowed with an inner light as he processed vast amounts of navigational data. Sergeant Davis's body tensed, his muscles rippling as the density increased. His reflexes sharpened, time seeming to slow as his perception accelerated beyond human limits. He turned to see Vexor, the Zarkoth security officer, her exoskeleton shifting and adapting, plates sliding into new configurations that offered enhanced protection and flexibility. Lieutenant Zarkus raised her hands, watching in awe as energy crackled between her fingertips. She focused, and a shimmering field materialized around her. Nearby, Kelthor's eyes widened as his mind suddenly grasped the intricacies of Luminari technology surrounding them. As the transformation progressed, the physical distinctions between humans and Zarkoth began to blur. New appendages sprouted, skin textures shifted, and sensory organs adapted to perceive a wider spectrum of reality. Despite these radical changes, each individual retained their core personality and memories, their identities anchored amidst the sea of change. The hybrid Lena underwent a final dramatic metamorphosis. Their forms stabilized, achieving a perfect synthesis of human, binar, and luminary characteristics. As the process completed, they found themselves intimately connected to the Luminari ship's systems, vast stores of knowledge and technology suddenly at their fingertips. Alara's ethereal form pulsed with satisfaction, recognizing that the two species had taken their first irrevocable step towards joining the Luminari collective. However, there was no time to fully process the magnitude of the change. The ship rocked violently as the first salvo from the Void Hunters struck its outer defenses. Captain Harper, his mind now capable of processing multiple streams of information simultaneously, quickly assessed the situation. Kovac, evasive maneuvers. Zarkus, see if you can generate a shield around our vital systems. His orders came rapid fire, each word charged with newfound authority and clarity. Kovac, his consciousness merged with the ship's systems, executed a series of complex maneuvers that would have been impossible mere minutes ago. The Luminari vessel danced through space, evading the majority of the Void Hunters' attacks. Lieutenant Zarkus raised her hands, concentrating intensely. A shimmering energy field materialized around the ship's core, deflecting the few shots that managed to find their mark. Dr. Zhang and Kelthor worked in perfect tandem, their enhanced minds allowing them to reconfigure the Luminari ship's defensive systems on the fly. Their fingers flew over holographic interfaces, adapting the ancient technology to counter the Void Hunters' weapons. At the heart of this organized chaos stood the hybrid Lena. They interfaced directly with the ship's central computer, their expanded consciousness allowing them to coordinate the defense with inhuman efficiency. Through their connection, they accessed advanced weapon systems, bringing them to bear against the attackers. As the battle raged, the newly evolved expedition members discovered an unexpected side effect of their transformation. Thoughts, strategies, and sensory information flowed between them in a nonverbal tide of instantaneous communication. This shared consciousness allowed for unprecedented levels of cooperation, their actions flowing together with fluid grace. The Void Hunters, clearly unprepared for such a dramatic shift in their opponent's capabilities, found their attacks increasingly ineffective. Their ship sustained heavy damage as the Luminari vessel's counterattacks grew more precise and powerful. Realizing their main assault was failing, the Void Hunters shifted tactics. A small craft detached from their main vessel, streaking towards one of the Luminari ship's docking bays. "They're attempting to board!" Sergeant Davis called out, his enhanced senses having detected the incoming craft before the ship's systems registered it. "Vexor, with me," he continued, already moving towards the threatened area. "We'll repel the boarders." The two security officers, their bodies now perfectly adapted for combat in various environments, led a small team to defend against the incursion. As they raced through the corridors, Davis marveled at how naturally he and Vexor coordinated their movements, years of distrust and hostility melting away in the face of their shared evolution. The boarding party breached the hull with a thunderous explosion, Void Hunters pouring through the opening with weapons raised. They found themselves facing opponents unlike any they had encountered before. Davis and Vexor moved with preternatural speed and grace, their enhanced bodies allowing them to close the distance before the Void Hunters could effectively bring their weapons to bear. The transformed defenders engaged the boarders in close quarters combat, their perfect tactical coordination making them seem to move as one fluid entity. As Davis ducked under a Void Hunter's swing, he felt rather than saw Vexor moving to cover his flank. He pivoted, using his newfound strength to throw his opponent into the path of another attacker. Vexor capitalized on the opening, her adapted exoskeleton allowing her to incapacitate both Void Hunters with a series of lightning-fast strikes. The battle in the docking bay was intense but short-lived. The Void Hunters, despite their advanced weaponry, found themselves hopelessly outmatched by the evolved humans and Zarkoth. Within minutes, the boarding party was subdued, their unconscious forms secured by the triumphant defenders. Back on the bridge, Captain Harper and Lieutenant Zarkus delved deep into the Luminari database, their expanded minds sifting through vast amounts of information. They sought to understand the Void Hunters, to unravel the motivations behind their vendetta against evolutionary advancement. As the immediate threat subsided, the Luminari ship's engines hummed to life. Alara's form shimmered into view, her voice resonating in the minds of all present. "You have taken the first step on a long journey," she intoned, "but your evolution is far from complete. We must travel to the sacred site of Convergence to finalize your transformation and fully induct you into the Luminari Collective." The ship entered faster than light travel, streaking towards an unknown destination. As the stars blurred outside the viewport, the transformed humans in Zarkoth gathered to take stock of their new reality. They knew that while they had overcome this initial challenge, their greatest trials, or most profound discoveries, still lay ahead. The hybrid Lena stood at the center of the group, their merged form a living symbol of the potential that awaited them all. As the Luminari vessel carried them towards their destiny, one question burned in every mind. What further changes would the completion of their evolution bring? As the Luminari vessel streaked through faster-than-light space, this question echoed in the minds of the transformed expedition members. The hybrid Lena entity stood at the helm, their merged form radiating a soft, pulsating light. As they interfaced with the ship's systems, a new phenomenon began to manifest. An energy field, invisible yet palpable, emanated from their body, washing over the bridge in gentle waves. Captain Harper, his mind now processing information at unprecedented speeds, was the first to notice the effects. He observed as crew members who spent more time near Lena seemed to adapt faster to their new forms. Their movements became more fluid, their control over new abilities more refined. "Dr. Zhang," Harper called out, his voice carrying a new timbre of authority, "I need you to analyze this energy signature coming from Lena. It seems to be accelerating our adaptation process." Dr. Zhang, her eyes now capable of perceiving a wider spectrum of energy, nodded and began her work. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, inputting data at a dizzying pace. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Zarkus found herself drawn to Lena's presence. As she approached, the energy crackling between her fingertips intensified. With a thought, she generated a shimmering force field around herself, the construct more stable and defined than any she had produced before. "This is remarkable," Zarkus said, her voice filled with wonder. She turned to Lena, their eyes meeting. In that moment, a connection sparked between them, transcending their former species barriers. Lena smiled, an expression that somehow encompassed both human warmth and alien wisdom. "Your control is improving rapidly, Lieutenant," they said, their merged voice resonating with harmonics that sent shivers through Zarkus's newly evolved nervous system. As the two moved closer, the energy field around them intensified. Suddenly, a console near them sparked, its display flickering wildly. Lieutenant Kovac, his consciousness now deeply integrated with the ship's systems, let out a gasp. "Captain," Kovac called out, his eyes glowing with data streams, "I'm detecting temporal anomalies forming throughout the ship. Pockets of accelerated time. They're emanating from the energy field surrounding Lena and Zarkus." Dr. Zhang looked up from her analysis, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Captain, these anomalies appear to be micro-wormholes. They're drawing in potential futures, accelerating our evolutionary process even further." As if to underscore her words, Sergeant Davis stumbled, his hand brushing against a nearby wall. To everyone's shock, his fingers seemed to merge with the ship's structure momentarily before he pulled away. "What's happening to me?" Davis asked, his voice tight with alarm. Dr. Zhang rushed to his side, her enhanced senses allowing her to perceive the changes at a cellular level. "Your physical adaptability has reached a new threshold. You're beginning to assimilate elements of your surroundings. Across the bridge, other crew members reported similar experiences. Some found their new abilities spiraling out of control, while others discovered entirely new capabilities emerging. Alara's ethereal form shimmered into view, her expression grave. "The rate of your evolution is exceeding our projections," she said, her voice resonating in their minds. "If this continues unchecked, you may bypass crucial stages of development. Your forms could destabilize." Lena and Zarkus exchanged a look of concern. They tried to step apart, but the action only intensified the energy field around them. The ship's systems fluctuated wildly in response. "We need to modulate this energy output," Lena said, their merged mind racing to find a solution. Before they could act, a blinding flash of light erupted from one of the temporal anomalies. As the glare faded, a figure stood where empty space had been moments before. The newcomer's form was unlike anything they had seen, a swirling mass of energy almost unchecked within a humanoid shape. As the figure solidified, features became recognizable. "Dr. Venn?" Captain Harper gasped, recognizing the human scientist who had been part of their original expedition. Dr. Alara Venn's eyes, now pools of swirling cosmic energy, swept across the bridge. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of eons. "I've witnessed 1,000 potential futures," she said, her words reverberating with otherworldly power. "The path you're on leads to unimaginable potential, but also great danger." The crew listened in rapt attention as Dr. Venn explained the possible outcomes of their accelerated evolution. The promise of godlike abilities tangled with the risk of losing their individual consciousness entirely. As Dr. Venn finished her warning, the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The view screen filled with an awe-inspiring sight, a massive construct of swirling energy and impossible geometries, the Luminari Nexus. Lena, and Zarkus moved to the front of the bridge, their energy fields pulsing in sync with the cosmic structure before them. The attraction between them, now intrinsically linked to the evolutionary fate of the entire expedition, crackled with potential. Captain Harper stepped forward, his enhanced mind grappling with the monumental decision before them. As the Luminari vessel approached the Nexus, the crew stood poised on the brink of a transformation that would redefine the very concept of existence. The next move they made would determine not just their own fates, but potentially the future of evolution itself. As the Luminari vessel approached the massive Nexus, the energy emanating from Lena and Zarkus intensified. The crew watched in awe as the cosmic structure loomed larger in the view screen, its swirling energies and impossible geometries defying comprehension. Captain Harper's enhanced mind raced, processing the potential outcomes of their approach. He turned to address the crew, his voice carrying a new weight of authority. "Prepare for docking with the Nexus," he ordered. "Dr. Zhang Kelthor, I need you to monitor the ship's integration with our evolving forms. We must ensure our individuality remains intact." As the ship entered the outer layers of the Nexus, a surge of power coursed through the vessel. The crew gasped as they felt the structure's energy interacting with their bodies, triggering a cascade of rapid transformations. Lieutenant Kovacs cried out, his eyes glowing with streams of data. "Captain, I can feel the ship. It's like an extension of my own body." To demonstrate, Kovacs raised his hand, and a nearby bulkhead rippled and reshaped itself. The crew watched in amazement as he manipulated the ship's structure with mere thoughts. Sergeant Davis, who had been standing near a wall, suddenly found his arm phasing through the metal. Instead of panic, he felt a sense of oneness with the ship. With a thought, he generated a shimmering force field that extended beyond the hull, enveloping a section of the vessel. "Incredible," Dr. Zhang murmured, her enhanced senses allowing her to perceive the changes at a molecular level. "The ship is becoming a living extension of our evolved forms." As they penetrated deeper into the Nexus, Alara's ethereal form guided them towards the core. Her voice resonated in their minds. "Here, your final stage of evolution awaits. But be warned, there are forces at work that seek to disrupt this process." Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared with warnings. Dr. Alara Venn, her cosmic eyes scanning the data streams, announced, "There's an anomaly at the center of the Nexus. A pocket of dark energy, similar to what the Void Hunters use, is growing rapidly. Captain Harper's expression hardened as he processed this new threat. If that energy corrupts our evolution, the consequences could be catastrophic. Dr. Venn nodded gravely. In some potential futures, this corruption creates beings consumed by a lust for power. They spread chaos throughout the galaxy. The captain's mind raced, formulating a plan. We need to neutralize that dark energy before we complete our transformation. It will require perfect synchronization of our new abilities. Carl, Lena, and Zarth stepped forward, their energy fields pulsing in harmony with the Nexus. We can create a telepathic network, Carl, Lena offered, their merged voice resonating with power. It will allow instantaneous communication and coordination among the crew. As they spoke, tendrils of energy extended from their form, connecting with each crew member. In an instant, the minds of the entire expedition were linked, thoughts and sensations flowing freely between them. The ship pressed deeper into the Nexus, the swirling energies outside the hull growing more chaotic. Suddenly, several crew members doubled over in pain. Lieutenant Kovac screamed as his arms elongated, his flesh rippling with uncontrolled mutations. The dark energy, Dr. John gasped, fighting against her own painful transformations. It's affecting our evolutionary process. Lieutenant Zarth, her body crackling with energy, stepped forward. With a gesture, she created a shimmering field around the ship, shielding the crew from the worst of the corrupting influence. But the strain was evident on her face, her form flickering as she struggled to maintain the protection. Seeing Zarkis' struggle, Carl, Lena made a decision. Their voice echoed through the telepathic link. Zarkis, we must merge our consciousness. Together we can withstand the energies of the core and guide our ship through. Zarkis hesitated for a moment, understanding the risk of losing her individual identity. But as another wave of dark energy battered her shields, she nodded in agreement. The crew watched in awe as Carl, Lena, and Zarkis moved towards each other, their energy fields intertwining. There was a blinding flash of light, and where two beings had stood, a new entity emerged. This tri-hybrid form radiated power beyond anything they had yet witnessed. Its voice, when it spoke, carried harmonics that resonated with the very fabric of space-time. We are unity, the being announced, its form shifting and swirling with patterns of light that mirrored the Nexus itself. Unity extended its consciousness into the ship's systems, and the crew gasped as the vessel began to transform. The hull became translucent, pulsing with swirling energies. The bridge melded with Unity's form, creating a seamless interface between the evolved beings and their vessel. Prepare yourselves, Unity commanded, its voice echoing through both the ship and the minds of the crew. We approach the core, where the dark energy awaits. Our next actions will determine not only our fate, but that of countless species across the galaxy. As the transformed ship surged towards the heart of the Nexus, the crew steeled themselves for the confrontation ahead. The dark energy loomed before them, a writhing mass of corruption that threatened to undo everything they had become. Unity's voice rang out once more, filled with willpower. Together we face this threat. Let our combined strength light the way forward. With that, the ship plunged into the maelstrom of energies at the Nexus core, the fate of the expedition and the galaxy hanging in the balance. The ship plunged into the maelstrom of energies at the Nexus core, Unity's radiant form leading the charge against the dark energy that threatened to corrupt their evolution. As they engaged the writhing mass of corruption, Unity began to show signs of strain. Their energy field fluctuated violently, the immense power channeled through their tri-hybrid form threatening to destabilize their merged consciousness. Captain Harper, his enhanced mind processing the situation at lightning speed, recognized the danger immediately. Dr. Zhang, Kelthor, he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. Divert all available power from non-essential systems to support Unity's efforts. The two scientists worked in perfect synchronization, their movements fluid and precise as they redirected the ship's energy reserves. Unity's form stabilized momentarily, but the intensity of the battle continued to take its toll. As the struggle against the corrupted energy intensified, unexpected reactions rippled through the evolved crew members. Sergeant Davis, his body now partially integrated with the ship's structure, let out a startled gasp as he experienced a sudden surge of growth. His form expanded rapidly, absorbing more of the vessel's components into his being. "Captain," Davis called out, his voice resonating through the ship's hull, "I can feel the defensive systems as if they were part of my own body." With a thought, Davis projected a powerful force field that enveloped the ship, containing the dark energy's corruptive influence. The shield shimmered with an otherworldly light, patterns of energy dancing across its surface. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kovacs underwent a startling transformation of his own. His consciousness, deeply connected to the ship's navigation systems, expanded beyond the confines of the vessel. His eyes glowed with an intense light as he tapped into the Nexus's vast network of space-time pathways. "I can see them," Kovacs whispered, his voice filled with awe. "The paths through the Nexus, every possible route, they're all clear to me now." With newfound precision, Kovacs guided the ship through the turbulent energy flows of the Nexus, narrowly avoiding pockets of intense radiation and gravitational distortions. Dr. Ilara Venn, her cosmic eyes scanning multiple timelines simultaneously, called out to Unity. "There!" she exclaimed, her form flickering as she struggled to maintain coherence in the present. "The dark energy structure has a weakness at its core. Focus your attacks there." Unity acknowledged the information, concentrating their assault on the point Dr. Venn had identified. The dark energy recoiled, its coherence faltering under the targeted attack. Ilara, the Luminari emissary, observed the crew's valiant efforts with growing concern. The situation was becoming critical, and she knew she could no longer remain a passive observer. With a shimmering gesture, she interfaced directly with the Nexus's core systems. "I will create a containment field," Ilara announced, her voice strained as she channeled the Nexus's power. "It will buy you time, but I cannot maintain it indefinitely." A translucent barrier materialized around the dark energy pocket, temporarily halting its expansion. Ilara's once stable energy body flickered and distorted under the strain, her form becoming increasingly insubstantial. As the battle reached its peak, Captain Harper noticed a change in the sensor readings. His enhanced cognitive abilities processed the data streams at incredible speeds, revealing a hidden structure within the dark energy pocket. "Unity," he called out, his voice filled with urgency. "The core of that energy, it's not just corruption. There's a ship in there, a Void Hunter vessel." The revelation changed the dynamics of the confrontation. Unity, drawing on Zarkus's tactical knowledge, quickly formulated a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the dark energy outright, they focused on isolating and extracting the Void Hunter ship from the corrupted field. Their efforts proved more effective. Slowly but steadily, the malevolent vessel was pulled free from the dark energy. As it emerged, the ship's systems began to fail catastrophically. Its hull cracked and splintered, exposing its interior to the intense energies of the Nexus. Through the ruptures, the crew caught glimpses of the Void Hunters themselves, beings of shadow and void, their forms twisted by prolonged exposure to corrupted evolutionary energy. Some writhed in agony as the pure energy of the Nexus washed over them, while others seemed to resist, clinging desperately to their corrupted state. The emergence of the Void Hunter ship triggered a chain reaction within the Nexus. The structure's self-repair mechanisms activated, purging the remaining dark energy and beginning to restore balance to its systems. An enormous surge of pure evolutionary energy radiated outward, engulfing the Stardancer and its crew. The energy wave catalyzed yet another stage of transformation for the expedition members. Their bodies, already significantly altered, began to crystallize. Organic matter merged with pure energy, creating forms that pulsed with otherworldly light. Unity, at the epicenter of this transformation, underwent the most dramatic change. The merged form of Lena and Zarth began to separate, their individual consciousnesses re-emerging. Yet instead of fully dividing, they settled into a new state of being. Three distinct individuals sharing an unbreakable bond, capable of merging and separating at will. As the dust settled from this latest evolution, Captain Harper surveyed the scene with his newly crystalline eyes. The Void Hunter ship, though crippled, still posed a potential threat. Its crew of shadowy beings continued to undergo unpredictable transformations, some resisting the change while others embraced it. "Secure that vessel," Harper ordered, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." The crew moved to comply, their crystalline forms pulsing with energy as they approached the damaged Void Hunter ship. As they did, the line between friend and foe blurred, the ongoing transformations affecting both sides of the conflict. The Nexus, now free from corruption, pulsed with renewed energy. Its vast stores of knowledge and evolutionary potential beckoned to the crew, promising further discoveries and transformations. Yet the presence of the Void Hunters served as a stark reminder that their journey was far from finished. As the crew prepared to board the alien vessel, Carl, Lena, and Zarth stood united, their unique bond symbolizing the potential for growth and cooperation that lay at the heart of their ongoing adventure. The next phase of their evolution awaited, fraught with new challenges and unexpected allies. Allies as they prepared to face the unknown challenges ahead. The crystalline forms of the crew pulsed with newfound energy as Captain Harper surveyed the scene. The crippled Void Hunter ship drifted nearby, its hull cracked and splintering, exposing glimpses of the shadowy beings within. "Sergeant Davis," Harper's voice resonated with authority, "assemble a boarding party. We need to secure that vessel and assess the situation." Davis, his body now partially integrated with the ship's systems, nodded in acknowledgement. His form shimmered as he gathered a team of security personnel, their bodies a fusion of organic matter and pure energy. As the boarding party prepared to depart, Dr. Zhang and Kelthor worked feverishly at their stations, their fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The ship's systems hummed with activity as they began integrating with the vast network of knowledge contained within the Nexus. "Captain," Dr. Zhang called out, her eyes wide with excitement, "we're uncovering encrypted data files within the Nexus. They appear to contain information about the Void Hunter's origins." Harper turned his attention to the scientists, his crystalline eyes glowing with interest. "What have you found?" Kelthor's multifaceted form shifted as he processed the data. "It seems the Void Hunters were once an advanced civilization. They attempted to manipulate their own evolution, but something went catastrophically wrong. The entire species became corrupted." As this revelation sank in, Sergeant Davis and his team phased through the damaged hull of the Void Hunter ship. The interior was a scene of chaos, with shadowy figures writhing and twisting in various stages of transformation. Davis's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, you need to see this. Some of these Void Hunters are changing. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Harper's gaze shifted to Unity, the merged form of Carl, Lena, and Zarth. "Can you interface with the Nexus core? We need more information about what's happening here." Unity nodded, their 3-in-1 consciousness reaching out to connect with the living entity of the Nexus. As they delved deeper, the truth began to unfold. "The Nexus," Unity's harmonious voice echoed through the bridge. "It's a creation of an ancient race. Its purpose is to guide the evolution of younger species. The Void Hunters, they tried to subvert this process, to prevent other civilizations from surpassing them." As this information came to light, Sergeant Davis's team encountered a female Void Hunter, whose form was stabilizing into a humanoid shape. Unlike her comrades, her eyes held a glimmer of understanding, rather than fear or resistance. "Captain," Davis reported, "we found one that seems different. She's not fighting the transformation like the others." Dr. Alara Venn, her cosmic eyes scanning multiple timelines, focused on the transforming Void Hunter. "That one could be key to understanding this process. We should attempt communication." Before Harper could respond, Lieutenant Kovacs, his consciousness still expanded beyond the ship, called out urgently, "Captain, I'm detecting a distress signal. It's coming from a distant part of the galaxy, but the signature, it matches other Void Hunter vessels." The implications of this discovery sent a ripple of tension through the crew. The conspiracy against evolution they had stumbled upon was far more extensive than they had initially believed. Harper's mind raced as he processed the influx of information. The transforming void hunters aboard the crippled ship were both potential threats and victims of their own species' actions. The female void hunter, who seemed to be accepting the change, could be a valuable source of information. After a moment of contemplation, Harper made his decision. Dr. Venn, work with Dr. Zhang to analyze the evolutionary patterns of the transforming void hunters. Focus on the one Davis identified as different. Carl, he turned to the human member of Unity, who had temporarily separated from the merge. I want you to act as our intermediary. Your experience with multiple stages of evolution makes you uniquely qualified for this task. Carl nodded, his form shimmering as he prepared for the delicate mission ahead. Lena and Zarth maintained their merged state, ready to provide support if needed. As the crew set about their tasks, Harper turned his attention back to the vast expanse of the Nexus. The journey that had brought them to this point had transformed them in ways they could never have imagined. Now, with the fate of multiple species potentially hanging in the balance, they faced challenges that would test not only their newfound abilities, but also their humanity. Carl made his way to the secure chamber where the female void hunter was being held. As he approached, her dark energy form rippled with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for an encounter that could shape the course of their conflict with the void hunters and potentially change the fate of humanity and all alien species. The chamber door slid open, and Carl stepped inside, his crystalline form glowing softly in the dimly lit room. The female void hunter, her body a swirling mass of dark energy with hints of a humanoid shape, regarded him with intelligent eyes. "Hello," Carl said, his voice calm and measured. "My name is Carl. What's yours?" The void hunter's form shimmered, and a voice like whispered shadows emerged. "I am Nyx." As their conversation began, the crew of the Star Dancer continued their work, acutely aware that every moment brought new discoveries, new dangers, and new possibilities in their ongoing evolutionary journey. As Carl prepared to enter the secure chamber, Captain Harper's voice crackled over the comm system. "Carl, we're enhancing security measures around the meeting area. Stay alert and report any unusual developments immediately." Carl nodded, his crystalline form shimmering with anticipation as the chamber door slid open. He stepped inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. In the center of the room, Nyx's dark energy form swirled and pulsed, her intelligent eyes fixed on him. "Hello," Carl said, his voice steady. "My name is Carl. What's yours?" The void hunter's form rippled, and a voice like whispered shadows emerged. "I am Nyx." As their conversation began, Carl noticed subtle changes in Nyx's appearance. Her dark energy form started to stabilize, features becoming more defined. Iridescent skin emerged, and her eyes shimmered with swirling galaxies. Carl found himself unexpectedly drawn to her otherworldly beauty. Outside the chamber, Unity, the merged form of Lena and Zarth, monitored the interaction closely. They sensed Carl's growing fascination with Nyx, a development that stirred complex emotions within their shared consciousness. Meanwhile, in the ship's laboratory, Dr. Zhang and Kelthor hunched over holographic displays, their fingers dancing across interfaces as they delved deeper into the Nexus data. "This is incredible," Dr. Zhang murmured, her eyes wide. "We found information about a hidden void hunter base in a remote sector." Kelthor's multifaceted form shifted as he processed the data. "It appears to be the source of the distress signal Lieutenant Kovacs detected earlier. And look at this. The base houses advanced technology capable of reversing the Nexus's evolutionary processes." Back in the secure chamber, Carl and Nyx's conversation intensified. Nyx's voice grew stronger as she revealed crucial information about her species' motivations. "We feared being left behind or destroyed," she explained, her form undulating with emotion. "But I've come to see the flaws in our approach. I want to help you stop my people's misguided efforts." As they spoke, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. Visible ripples of energy began to flow between Carl and Nyx, their evolutionary energies resonating. Dr. Alara Venn, observing from the monitoring station, leaned forward, her cosmic eyes widening. "Captain," she called out, "you need to see this. The interaction between Carl and Nyx is triggering some sort of evolutionary response." Harper strode to her station, his crystalline eyes fixed on the display. "What are the implications?" Before Dr. Venn could respond, Sergeant Davis's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, we've completed our sweep of the Void Hunter vessel. We've discovered a cache of advanced weaponry designed to disrupt evolutionary processes. This technology poses a significant threat." Harper's mind raced, processing the influx of information. He tapped his communicator. "Senior staff, report to the briefing room immediately." As the crew assembled, Unity experienced a sudden surge of new abilities. They found they could perceive and manipulate the fundamental forces governing evolution itself. The immense power at their disposal both exhilarated and terrified them. In the briefing room, Harper addressed his team. "We face multiple challenges. The hidden Void Hunter base presents an opportunity to strike at the heart of their anti-evolutionary conspiracy. However, we must also consider the potential threat posed by their weapons." Dr. Zhang interjected, her voice urgent. "Captain, I'm detecting a spike in the evolutionary energy emanating from the secure chamber. The interaction between Carl and Nyx might be catalyzing a new stage of evolution." As the crew debated their next move, Lieutenant Kovach's voice cut through the discussion. "Captain, we're receiving another distress signal. A group of alien refugees is under attack by Void Hunter forces in a nearby star system." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled upon them. Harper's crystalline form pulsed with intensity as he considered their options. Outside the secure chamber, Carl and Nyx remained oblivious to the unfolding events. Their bodies continued to undergo subtle changes, Carl's crystalline form taking on dark energy patterns, while Nyx became more solid and humanoid. Their deepening connection transcended the physical, minds and emotions intertwining in ways neither had experienced before. As the Stardancer's crew grappled with their next move, the ship hummed with potential energy. The discoveries they had made and the challenges they faced would test not only their newfound abilities, but also their unity as a team. The evolutionary destiny of multiple species hung in the balance, awaiting the decisions that would shape the course of their ongoing journey. The weight of the situation pressed upon Captain Harper as he surveyed his assembled crew. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "We need to act on multiple fronts," Harper announced, his crystalline form pulsing with perseverance. "Lieutenant Kovach, set a course for the nearby star system. We'll aid those alien refugees under attack." Kovach nodded, his expanded consciousness already plotting the most efficient route. "Aye, Captain. Course laid in." Harper turned to Dr. Zhang and Kelthor. "You two will continue studying the Nexus data. We need to understand more about this hidden Void Hunter base and prepare for a potential assault." As the crew dispersed to their stations, the Stardancer hummed to life, its advanced systems responding to the collective will of its evolved crew. The ship accelerated smoothly, the stars outside blurring into streaks of light. In the weapons bay, Sergeant Davis and his team worked feverishly to adapt the newly acquired Void Hunter weapons. Their hands moved with preternatural speed, adjusting and recalibrating the alien technology to interface with their own evolved physiology. "How's it coming, Sergeant?" Harper's voice came through the comm. Davis hefted a sleek obsidian black rifle, its surface rippling with dark energy. "We're making progress, Captain. These weapons pack a punch, but they're tricky to handle. We'll be ready by the time we reach the combat zone." On the bridge, Unity took their position at the primary weapon controls. Their merged consciousness expanded, interfacing seamlessly with the ship's systems. Targeting algorithms and power distribution schematics flowed through their mind like a digital river. "Unity, status report," Harper called out. "All weapon systems are online and at peak efficiency," Unity responded, their harmonious voice resonating with confidence. "Our enhanced abilities allow for unprecedented accuracy and power modulation. We are ready for combat." As the Stardancer raced towards its destination, Activity continued throughout the ship. In the specialized observation chamber adjacent to the secure room, Dr. Alara Venn monitored Carl and Nyx's ongoing transformation. Her cosmic eyes widened as she observed the changes unfolding before her. Carl's crystalline structure now incorporated swirling patterns of dark energy, while Nyx's form had solidified further, her skin taking on a translucent, crystal-like quality. The two stood close together, their bodies seeming to resonate on a fundamental level. "Fascinating," Dr. Venn murmured, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "The mutual transformation is enhancing their ability to communicate and understand each other. It's almost as if they're forming a new hybrid species." Inside the chamber, Carl and Nyx were lost in their own world, oblivious to the scrutiny they were under. Their minds touched in ways that transcended normal communication, sharing thoughts and emotions with startling clarity. "I can feel the void within you," Nyx whispered, her voice a mix of awe and trepidation. "It's beautiful." Carl nodded, his newly acquired ability to manipulate shadows manifesting as tendrils of darkness that curled around his crystalline form. "And I can see the structure of the universe in your eyes. We're changing, Nyx, becoming something new." Their quiet moment was interrupted as the Star Dancer dropped out of FTL, alarms blaring throughout the ship. Captain Harper's voice rang out over the comm system. "All hands, battle stations. We've entered the contested star system." The scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. A small fleet of unfamiliar ships, their hulls adorned with intricate, bioluminescent patterns, desperately evaded the relentless attacks of 3 Void Hunter vessels. Energy beams lanced through space, leaving trails of superheated plasma in their wake. Lieutenant Kovach's hands flew across the helm controls, his expanded consciousness allowing him to predict and avoid incoming fire with uncanny precision. The Star Dancer wove through the battlefield, positioning itself between the beleaguered refugee fleet and their attackers. "Unity, you have weapons free," Harper commanded. "Disable those Void Hunter ships, but try to keep them intact. We may need prisoners for interrogation." Unity's merged form glowed with power as they unleashed a barrage of energy beams. Each shot was perfectly calculated, striking the Void Hunter vessels with surgical precision. 2 of the enemy ships suddenly went dark, their weapon systems overloaded and disabled. The third Void Hunter vessel, caught off guard by the Star Dancer's sudden appearance and advanced capabilities, attempted to retreat, but Unity was faster, locking on to the fleeing ship with a tractor beam. "Sergeant Davis," Harper called out, "prepare your team for boarding action. Secure those ships and any surviving crew." Davis and his security team assembled in the transporter room, their adapted Void Hunter weapons humming with barely suppressed energy. With a nod from Davis, they phased through reality, reappearing inside the disabled enemy vessels. The boarding action was swift and decisive. Davis's team moved like shadows through the Void Hunter ships, their evolved abilities allowing them to pass through walls and ambush the disoriented crew. Many of the Void Hunters they encountered were already showing signs of transformation, their dark energy forms flickering and unstable. "Captain," Davis reported, his voice slightly distorted by the phase shift, "we've secured the ships. Several high-ranking officers are among the prisoners. They could be valuable sources of intelligence." As the immediate threat subsided, Harper turned his attention to the refugee fleet. The alien ships, though damaged, were still intact. Their designs were unlike anything the Star Dancer's crew had encountered before, with organic curves and pulsating bioluminescent patterns that seemed to shift and change. "Open a channel," Harper ordered. A moment later, a holographic display flickered to life on the bridge, revealing a female alien with iridescent skin and large luminous eyes. "I am Captain Harper of the Star Dancer," he began. "We've come to offer assistance. Can you identify yourselves?" The alien's eyes shimmered with a mix of relief and wariness. "I am Astra, leader of the Lumina. We are grateful for your intervention, Captain Harper. Our people flee from a Void Hunter attack on our home world. We request asylum and protection." As Astra spoke, Unity suddenly stiffened, their merged form pulsing with excitement. "Captain," they interjected, We're detecting an unusual energy signature from one of the Lumina ships. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. Before Harper could respond, Dr. Zhang's voice came through the comm system, her words tumbling out in a rush of excitement. Captain, we've made a breakthrough. The Nexus data mentions an artifact called the evolutionary keystone. It's supposed to unlock the full potential of any species' evolutionary path, and I think the Lumina might have a piece of it. Harper's mind raced, processing the implications of this new information. The Lumina refugees, the captured void hunters, the mysterious evolutionary keystone, each element added a new layer of complexity to their mission. As he prepared to address Astra and the Lumina, Harper knew that the decisions he made in the next few moments could shape the evolutionary fate of multiple species across the galaxy. The Stardancer hung in space, its crew poised on the brink of a new chapter in their ongoing journey. The transformed Carl and Nix, the merged Unity, and the entire evolved crew stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their newfound abilities both a source of power and a reminder of how far they had come and how far they still had to go. Harper's mind raced as he processed Astra's plea for asylum and the potential significance of the energy signature Unity had detected. He turned to address the Lumina leader, his crystalline form pulsing with a steady, reassuring light. Astra, we will provide you and your people with protection. There's an uninhabited planet nearby that can serve as a temporary haven. We'll escort your fleet there immediately. Astra's luminous eyes shimmered with gratitude. Thank you, Captain Harper. We are in your debt. As the Stardancer led the Lumina fleet towards the nearby planet, Harper convened an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The ship's conference room buzzed with anticipation as he outlined their next steps. We're designating the planet as Haven, Harper explained, bringing up a holographic display of the terrestrial world. It has a breathable atmosphere and sufficient resources to sustain both our crew and the Lumina refugees. We'll establish a temporary base there while we plan our next move. Dr. Zhang leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. Captain, if the Lumina do possess a piece of the evolutionary keystone, we need to study it immediately. It could be the key to understanding the broader implications of our own transformations. Harper nodded. Agreed. Dr. Zhang, you and Kelthor will lead the research efforts on the keystone fragment. Unity, I want you to work with the Lumina on setting up defensive measures around the camp. As the Stardancer descended through Haven's atmosphere, the crew sprang into action. The ship's landing struts extended, touching down on a vast grassy plain bordered by dense alien forests. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the sense of unfamiliar flora. Sergeant Davis and his security team were the first to disembark, their adapted Void Hunter weapons at the ready as they secured a perimeter. They moved with fluid grace, their evolved forms allowing them to cover ground with inhuman speed and agility. Lieutenant Kovacs coordinated the landing of the Lumina ships, his expanded consciousness effortlessly managing the complex logistics of bringing down an entire refugee fleet. The planes soon became a hive of activity as temporary shelters and essential facilities began to take shape. In the specialized observation chamber aboard the Stardancer, Dr. Alara Ven watched in fascination as Carl and Nix's transformation continued to progress. Their bodies seemed to stabilize, settling into a unique hybrid form that combined crystalline structures with swirling patterns of dark energy. Remarkable, Dr. Ven murmured, her cosmic eyes taking in every detail. Their physiological changes are unprecedented. We need to document this thoroughly. As Carl and Nix stepped out of the chamber, they blinked in the bright sunlight of Haven. Carl flexed his newly stabilized form, marveling at the way shadows seemed to cling to his crystalline body. Nix, now more solid and humanoid, ran her hands over her skin, which had taken on a translucent, crystal-like quality. How do you feel? Dr. Ven asked, running a scanner over their bodies. Different, Carl replied, his voice resonating with a new depth. But complete, somehow. Nix nodded in agreement. It's as if we've become something entirely new. I can feel the potential within us. As they spoke, Carl absently raised his hand, and a tendril of shadow curled around his fingers. Nix mirrored the gesture, and a soft glow emanated from her palm, illuminating the area around them. Dr. Ven's eyes widened. Fascinating. It appears you've developed the ability to manipulate both light and shadow energies. This could be invaluable in our encounters with the Void Hunters. Captain Harper, observing the display, made a quick decision. Carl, Nix, I want you both to join our mission planning team. Your unique abilities and perspective could provide crucial insights. As the base on Haven took shape, Unity began training sessions with the Lumina refugees. Their merged form glowed with energy as they demonstrated how to create protective shields around the camp. During one such session, Unity noticed something unexpected. As they guided a group of Lumina through a defensive exercise, they sensed a faint telepathic resonance. Interesting, Unity's harmonious voice echoed. It seems you possess latent telepathic abilities, and they appear to be amplified when in proximity to the evolutionary keystone fragment. This revelation sparked excitement among the Lumina and caught Captain Harper's attention. The potential for integrating Lumina volunteers into the Stardancer's crew suddenly became a tantalizing possibility. Meanwhile, in a makeshift laboratory, Dr. Zhang and Kelthor pored over the captured Void Hunter vessels. Their hands moved with preternatural speed as they reverse-engineered the anti-evolutionary technology. Look at this, Dr. Zhang exclaimed, holding up a small device. I think we've done it. This countermeasure should be able to neutralize the Void Hunter's ability to disrupt evolutionary processes. Kelthor's multifaceted eyes gleamed with satisfaction. An impressive achievement, Doctor. This will significantly enhance our defensive capabilities. As night fell on Haven, the base hummed with activity. Sergeant Davis led a team to interrogate the captured Void Hunter officers, employing a combination of advanced questioning techniques and the newly discovered empathic abilities of Lumina volunteers. The hidden base, one of the Void Hunter officers finally revealed, his dark energy form flickering with strain. It's in a massive asteroid field, protected by cloaking technology. This crucial piece of information set the next phase of their mission into motion. Lieutenant Kovacs, his expanded consciousness working overtime, began mapping potential routes through the treacherous asteroid field. In the command center, Captain Harper studied the tactical displays, his crystalline form pulsing with intense concentration. The pieces were falling into place, but the challenges ahead were daunting. As he prepared to brief his crew on their next moves, an incoming transmission caught his attention. It was Astra, the Lumina leader. Her luminous eyes shimmered with an urgency that made Harper pause. Captain Harper, she began, her voice tinged with reverence and concern. There's something you need to know about the evolutionary keystone. Our ancient legends speak of its true power. As Astra began to reveal the full potential of the artifact, Harper realized that the stakes of their mission had just risen exponentially. The fate of galactic evolution itself might hang in the balance of their next actions. As Astra's words hung in the air, Captain Harper's crystalline form pulsed with a mix of anticipation and concern. The Lumina leader's revelation about the evolutionary keystone's true power added a new layer of urgency to their mission. Harper quickly organized a briefing with his senior staff to share this critical information and finalize their preparations. In the days that followed, the Stardancer hummed with activity. The engineering team, led by Kelthor, worked tirelessly to integrate the newly developed anti-evolutionary countermeasures throughout the ship's systems. Harper watched as Kelthor's multifaceted eyes darted between holographic displays, his hands moving with preternatural speed to calibrate the devices. The integration is complete, Captain, Kelthor reported, his voice filled with a mix of pride and willpower. These countermeasures should provide significant protection against Void Hunter attacks. Meanwhile, Carl and Nix continued to explore their evolving abilities. During a training session in the ship's holodeck, Carl extended his hand, concentrating on the solid wall before him. To his surprise, his arm passed through the barrier as if it were made of smoke. Nix's eyes widened. Carl, you're phasing through matter. Excited by this discovery, they spent hours honing this new skill, realizing its potential for the upcoming mission. Their ability to bypass physical barriers would be invaluable when infiltrating the Void Hunter base. In another part of the ship, Unity led an intensive training session with the Lumina volunteers. The merged form of Lena and Zarth glowed with energy as they guided the aliens through a series of mental exercises. Focus on the connection between you, Unity's harmonious voice instructed. Feel the thoughts of those around you. As the Lumina concentrated, a web of telepathic energy began to form, linking their minds in a silent network. Unity nodded in approval, knowing this psychic connection would be crucial during the infiltration. Dr. Zhang's laboratory was a flurry of activity as she put the finishing touches on her latest invention. The prototype device on her workbench emitted a soft, pulsating glow. This tracker should be able to detect the energy signature of the complete evolutionary keystone, she explained to Captain Harper. It's our best chance of locating the artifact within the Void Hunter base. Lieutenant Kovac sat in deep meditation on the bridge, his expanded consciousness reaching out to map the treacherous asteroid field. His eyes snapped open, and he immediately began inputting data into the ship's navigation system. I've identified several safe corridors through the field, Kovac reported. It won't be easy, but it's our best path to the Void Hunter base. In the cargo bay, Sergeant Davis led his security team through intense zero-gravity combat drills. They practiced using their evolved abilities in conjunction with the captured Void Hunter weapons, developing new tactics that merged human ingenuity with alien technology. As the departure date approached, Captain Harper made his final preparations. He assembled a diverse infiltration team, combining the unique abilities of his crew with the newly trained Lumina volunteers. Carl, Nix, Unity, Dr. Zhang, Sergeant Davis, and 3 Lumina telepaths stood ready for the challenges ahead. The Star Dancer lifted off from Haven, leaving behind a skeleton crew to protect the remaining Lumina refugees. As they approached the asteroid field, Lieutenant Kovac initiated a complex series of maneuvers, his expanded consciousness allowing him to anticipate and avoid potential collisions. Unity stood at the ready on the bridge, their merged form pulsing with energy. As smaller asteroids threatened to impact the ship, Unity extended their hands, creating shimmering fields of force that gently deflected the space rocks from their path. Halfway through the field, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive asteroid, previously undetected, had shifted its orbit and was on a collision course with the Star Dancer. "Evasive maneuvers," Harper ordered, but Kovac shook his head. "There's no time, Captain. We can't alter course quickly enough." In that moment of crisis, Carl and Nix rushed onto the bridge. Without a word, they joined hands with Unity, their hybrid forms glowing with combined light and shadow energy. "We have an idea, Captain," Carl said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "But we've never attempted anything on this scale before." Harper nodded, trusting in his crew's abilities. "Do it." Carl, Nix, and Unity focused their powers, creating a shimmering field of energy around the Star Dancer. As the massive asteroid loomed before them, the ship's hull began to shimmer and fade. The crew held their breath as the asteroid filled their view screen. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the Star Dancer would be crushed. Then impossibly, the ship passed through the giant space rock as if it were no more substantial than a hologram. As they emerged on the other side, the bridge erupted in cheers. Harper's crystalline form pulsed with pride and relief. "Exceptional work, all of you, but we're not out of danger yet." Realizing the close call had likely alerted any nearby Void Hunter patrols, Harper ordered the activation of their experimental cloaking technology. The Star Dancer shimmered and faded from view, becoming virtually undetectable. As they neared the coordinates of the hidden Void Hunter base, Dr. Zhang's prototype detector began to pulse with increasing frequency. "Captain," she called out, her eyes fixed on the readings, "the energy signature is growing stronger, but something's not right." Harper moved to her station, his crystalline form reflecting the pulsing light of the detector. "What do you mean, Doctor?" Zhang pointed to a massive planet-sized asteroid ahead of them. "The signal's coming from there, not from within the asteroid field as we expected." As the Star Dancer cautiously approached, the surface of the asteroid began to shimmer and distort. Glimpses of an enormous artificial structure peeked through sophisticated holographic camouflage. The realization hit Harper like a physical blow. This wasn't just a hidden base. It was an entire space station, likely the Void Hunters' primary headquarters. The stakes of their mission had just risen exponentially. "All stop," Harper ordered, his mind racing to adapt their strategy to this new development. "Maintain cloak and hold position at the edge of the asteroid field." He turned to face his crew, his crystalline form pulsing with intensity. "I need the infiltration team in the briefing room immediately. We have a new situation to plan for." As the team assembled, the enormity of their task became clear. Somewhere within the labyrinthine structure of the Void Hunter headquarters lay the complete evolutionary keystone, and with it, the power to shape the future of galactic evolution itself. Captain Harper's crystalline form pulsed with intensity as he addressed the assembled infiltration team in the Stardancer's briefing room. The holographic display of the massive Void Hunter space station rotated slowly before them, its true form occasionally flickering through the sophisticated camouflage. "This changes everything," Harper said, his voice carrying the weight of their newfound challenge. "We're no longer dealing with a simple base. This is their headquarters, and the evolutionary keystone is somewhere inside." Carl leaned forward, his hybrid form casting a mix of light and shadow across the table. "How do we get in? That thing's got to be crawling with Void Hunters." Dr. Zhang activated a smaller hologram, showcasing their modified shuttle. "We've equipped the shuttle with our experimental cloaking technology. It should get us close, but we'll need a way inside." Nix's eyes glimmered with drive. "Carl and I might have a solution for that." As the team finalized their plan, Lieutenant Kovacs prepared the shuttle for launch. The infiltration team boarded silently, each member acutely aware of the mission's high stakes. Carl and Nix exchanged a meaningful look as they took their seats, their newly discovered phasing abilities about to be put to the ultimate test. The shuttle detached from the Stardancer, its cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Kovacs' expanded consciousness allowed him to navigate the treacherous security grid surrounding the Void Hunter station with unnatural precision. As they approached the station's outer hull, Carl and Nix moved to the front of the shuttle. They joined hands, their hybrid energies intertwining. A shimmering field enveloped the shuttle, and for a heart-stopping moment, the entire craft phased through the solid hull of the station. Once inside, the team split into two groups. Carl, Nix, and a Lumina telepath named Lyra set off in search of the evolutionary keystone, while Dr. Zhang led Unity, Sergeant Davis, and the remaining Lumina telepaths towards the central computer core. Carl's group moved swiftly through the station's corridors, their senses on high alert. Suddenly, a faint whirring sound caught their attention. A sleek, spider-like drone rounded the corner, its sensors sweeping the area. "New security measures," Nix whispered, recognizing the advanced technology. "They can detect our energy signatures." Without hesitation, Carl launched into action. He closed the distance to the drone in a blur of motion, his fist connecting with its central processor. The drone sparked and collapsed, but not before emitting a short-range alert. 3 more drones appeared, their weapons primed. Nix vaulted over Carl, her shadow-infused kicks disabling 2 of the drones in rapid succession. The 3rd drone fired, its energy blast narrowly missing Carl's head. Lyra, the Lumina telepath, concentrated intensely. The drone suddenly froze, its sensors sweeping wildly as if confused. Carl seized the opportunity, phasing his hand through the drone's armor and crushing its power core. "Nice work," Carl said, nodding to Lyra. "Your illusions could be the edge we need." As they pressed on, Dr. Zhang's group encountered their own challenges. Unity's energy manipulation proved invaluable, their merged form glowing softly as they overrode security locks and created safe passages through hazardous areas. Sergeant Davis moved with lethal efficiency, his evolved physiology allowing him to neutralize Void Hunter guards before they could raise the alarm. The Lumina telepaths worked in tandem, creating a psychic network that allowed the team to communicate silently and anticipate threats. As they delved deeper into the station, both groups made a chilling discovery. They passed chambers filled with stasis pods, each containing a different alien species. Dr. Zhang's keen eye noticed signs of forced evolutionary regression in the subjects. They're not just trying to stop evolution, she murmured, her voice tight with anger. They're actively reversing it on a massive scale. Meanwhile, Carl's team finally located the chamber housing the evolutionary keystone. The artifact pulsated with energy, its crystalline structure emitting a soft, mesmerizing glow. An energy field surrounded it, shimmering with complex patterns. Nyx studied the field intently, her Void Hunter knowledge proving crucial. There's a weakness in the modulation, she said. If we time it right, we might be able to create a window. Carl nodded, understanding immediately. They synchronized their light and shadow manipulation, creating a carefully timed pulse that briefly disrupted the energy field. In that split second, Carl reached through and grasped the keystone. The moment his fingers closed around the artifact, alarms blared throughout the station. The extraction had triggered a station-wide alert, forcing both teams to abandon stealth and fight their way back to the rendezvous point. Dr. Zhang's group, having successfully downloaded critical data from the computer core, raced through the corridors. Unity took point, deflecting energy blasts and creating protective barriers as they encountered increasing resistance. Sergeant Davis coordinated with the Lumina telepaths, using their shared awareness to anticipate and counter enemy movements. His tactical expertise shone as he directed the team through the chaotic environment, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers. As the two groups converged on the extraction point, they faced their greatest challenge yet. A squad of Void Hunter elites blocked their path, their bodies twisted by corrupted evolutionary energy. Carl and Nyx stepped forward, their hybrid abilities now working in perfect harmony. What followed was a dazzling display of light and shadow combat. Carl's fists blazed with radiant energy as he engaged two of the elites, his movements fluid and precise. Nyx became a living shadow, her form blurring as she outmaneuvered her opponents, striking with devastating effect. Their teamwork created an opening, allowing the rest of the team to make a break for the shuttle. Lieutenant Kovacs, alerted to the situation, brought the craft in close to the station's hull. Carl and Nyx, pushing their abilities to the limit, extended their phasing field to encompass the entire team. As they passed through the hull and into the shuttle, Unity unleashed a massive burst of energy. The station's weapon systems flickered and died, providing a crucial window for their escape. The shuttle shot away from the station, weaving through the asteroid field with Void Hunter pursuit ships in hot pursuit. Kovacs' enhanced piloting skills were put to the test as he navigated the treacherous terrain, staying just ahead of their attackers. As they neared the edge of the asteroid field, the Star Dancer decloaked. The ship's weapons blazed to life, forcing the Void Hunter vessels to break off their pursuit. The shuttle docked safely, and Captain Harper immediately ordered a full retreat. As the Star Dancer entered faster-than-light travel, the crew gathered on the bridge. Dr. Zhang initiated a preliminary analysis of the evolutionary keystone, her eyes widening as data streamed across her console. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and concern, "I don't think we fully understood what we were dealing with. This artifact, its potential is beyond anything we imagined." Harper's crystalline form pulsed with anticipation. "What about the data we retrieved from their computer core?" Dr. Zhang's expression grew grim. "It's worse than we thought. The Void Hunters have a galaxy-wide network of suppression activities. This isn't just about stopping evolution. They're trying to control the very fabric of life itself." As the Star Dancer raced back to Haven, Captain Harper surveyed his crew. They had succeeded against incredible odds, but he knew this was only the beginning. The true scale of the conflict was only now becoming clear, and the choices they made in the coming days would shape the evolutionary destiny of the entire galaxy. Galaxy. The weight of their discoveries settled heavily on the crew as the Star Dancer hurtled through space towards Haven. As they approached their destination, Captain Harper's crystalline form pulsed with renewed intensity. He turned to his crew, his voice carrying a mix of urgency and dedication. "Prepare for landing. We need to secure the keystone and analyze our findings immediately." The ship descended through Haven's atmosphere, touching down with a gentle thud. The moment the landing gear engaged, the crew sprang into action. Sergeant Davis led a team to establish a secure perimeter around the Star Dancer. his enhanced physiology allowing him to cover ground with inhuman speed. Dr. Jiang wasted no time in setting up a makeshift laboratory near the ship. She worked with practiced efficiency, unpacking sensitive equipment and preparing analysis stations. Kelthor, the Lumina scientist, moved alongside her, his telepathic abilities allowing for seamless coordination as they arranged the lab. Carl and Nix approached Dr. Zhang, their hybrid forms still radiating residual energy from the intense combat at the Void Hunter station. "We want to help with the Keystone research," Carl said, his voice carrying a slight echo of light energy. Dr. Zhang nodded, her eyes never leaving the delicate instruments she was calibrating. "Your unique physiology could provide valuable insights. Start by monitoring these energy readouts." As Carl and Nix began working with the evolutionary keystone, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. Their proximity to each other and the artifact caused subtle shifts in their energy patterns. Carl felt a warmth spreading through his light-infused body, while Nix experienced a cooling sensation in her shadow-based form. Meanwhile, Sergeant Davis coordinated with the Lumina refugees to bolster Haven's defenses. He pored over the stolen Void Hunter data, implementing advanced security protocols. "We need to create overlapping fields of protection," he explained to a group of Lumina engineers. "Their cloaking technology is advanced but not infallible." Unity, their merged form glowing softly, moved through the base. They extended their hands, generating shimmering energy shields at key strategic points. The air crackled with power as each new barrier came online, forming a multi-layered defense grid around Haven. As the day progressed, the atmosphere in Dr. Zhang's lab grew tense with anticipation. Her fingers flew across holographic displays, analyzing streams of data from the evolutionary keystone. Suddenly, she gasped, her eyes widening. "Captain," she called out, her voice trembling slightly, "you need to see this." Harper strode into the lab, his crystalline form reflecting the pulsing light of the keystone. "What have you found, Doctor?" Dr. Zhang gestured to a complex 3D model floating above her workstation. The keystone contains genetic information from thousands of species across the galaxy. When activated, it could trigger controlled evolutionary leaps in multiple races simultaneously. The implications of this discovery sent a shockwave through the assembled crew. Harper's form pulsed rapidly as he processed the information. "Call an emergency meeting? Senior staff only." As the leadership convened, Lieutenant Kovacs burst into the room, his expanded consciousness clearly agitated. "Captain, I've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. They match the patterns of cloaked Void Hunter vessels." A heavy silence fell over the room. Harper's voice cut through the tension. "It seems our escape didn't go unnoticed. We need to prepare for an imminent attack." The captain outlined a two-pronged strategy. "Dr. Zhang, accelerate your research into the Keystone's activation process. We need to understand its full potential before the Void Hunters arrive. Everyone else, initiate full combat readiness protocols. Prepare the Star Dancer and Haven for a potential siege." As the meeting dispersed, Carl and Nix found themselves drawn to each other. The shared intensity of their recent experiences and their unique hybrid nature created an unspoken bond between them. As they worked side by side in the lab, their energy fields began to synchronize, amplifying each other's abilities. During a brief moment of respite, Carl placed his hand on Nix's shoulder. A visible surge of energy pulsed between them, light and shadow intertwining in a mesmerizing display. "Did you feel that?" Nix whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Carl nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "It's like our powers are feeding off each other. We should explore this further." As night fell on Haven, the first signs of the impending Void Hunter attack appeared on the long-range scanners. Cloaked ships began probing the outer defenses of the base, testing for weaknesses. Sergeant Davis's voice crackled over the comm system. "All units, battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The battle for Haven had begun, with the fate of galactic evolution hanging in the balance. As alarms blared across the base, Captain Harper knew that the decisions made in the coming hours would shape the future of countless species across the stars. Galaxy. As the weight of their discoveries settled heavily on the crew, A sudden surge of energy pulsed through the ship, emanating from the evolutionary keystone. Carl and Nix exchanged a knowing glance, their hybrid forms resonating with a shared purpose. Without a word, they moved in perfect synchronization towards the chamber housing the artifact. Their combined aura of light and shadow created a swirling vortex that parted the chaos around them, clearing a path through the frantic preparations for battle. Captain Harper opened his mouth to speak, but the words died on his lips as he witnessed the commitment in their eyes. He nodded, understanding the gravity of their unspoken decision. As Carl and Nix reached the keystone chamber, they positioned themselves on opposite sides of the pulsating artifact. Their hands joined, forming a circuit of energy that began to interact with the keystone's latent power. The air crackled with potential as their hybrid physiology allowed them to withstand the initial surge. Dr. Zhang's voice came over the comm system, her tone urgent. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. We need to redirect all available power to the keystone chamber immediately." Harper's crystalline form pulsed with decision. "Do it. Divert all non-essential power now." Throughout the base, lights flickered and dimmed as energy was rerouted. Sergeant Davis's enhanced voice cut through the darkness. "All units, switch to night vision protocols. Lumina telepaths, establish a psychic link for coordination." Outside, the first wave of Void Hunter ships breached the outer defenses. Lieutenant Kovach's voice crackled over the comm. "Multiple bogies incoming, engaging evasive maneuvers." The Star Dancer lurched into action, its engines burning bright against the star-studded backdrop. Kovach's fingers danced across the controls, executing a series of impossible turns that sent pursuing ships careening into each other. Unity, still aboard the Star Dancer, channeled their energy manipulation abilities through the ship's weapon systems. A pulsating shield of iridescent energy bloomed around Haven, temporarily deflecting the Void Hunter's devastating energy cannon. The strain of maintaining the defense showed on Unity's merged form, their luminous skin flickering like a dying star. Inside the keystone chamber, Carl and Nix's bodies began to change. Their separate forms blurred, merging into a single entity that pulsed with raw power. This new being, a perfect synthesis of human and Void Hunter genetics, interfaced directly with the evolutionary keystone. Dr. Zhang's eyes widened as she monitored the readings. The keystone's energy signature is changing. It's broadcasting across the galaxy. The effects were immediate and startling. The Lumina telepaths gasped in unison as their abilities surged, allowing them to coordinate the base's defense with unprecedented efficiency. Outside, the attacking Void Hunter forces closest to Haven began to show signs of change. Some of their soldiers reverted from their corrupted forms, causing chaos in their ranks. Sergeant Davis seized the opportunity. "All units, push forward. Reclaim our defensive positions." The evolved human soldiers surged forward, their enhanced abilities further amplified by the Keystone's influence. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, pushing back the disoriented Void Hunters and reclaiming key positions around the base. In orbit, the battle took an unexpected turn. Void Hunter vessels nearest to the planet experienced cascading system failures as their evolution-suppressing technology conflicted with the Keystone's energy. Lieutenant Kovach's voice rang out triumphantly. "Their shields are down, targeting their weapon systems now." The Star Dancer unleashed a barrage of precision strikes, disabling several enemy ships in quick succession. However, the victory was short-lived as the strain of maintaining the connection with the Keystone began to show on the merged form of Carl and Nix. Their combined consciousness flickered, threatening to dissipate under the immense pressure. Dr. Zhang made a split-second decision. "We need to stabilize the activation process. I'm merging the Keystone fragment with the main artifact." As she initiated the procedure, a blinding surge of power erupted from the Keystone. The shock wave rippled through Haven, temporarily disrupting all electronic systems, including the base's defensive shields. Captain Harper's voice cut through the sudden silence. "All personnel to defensive positions. Prepare for close-quarters combat." The defenders of Haven braced themselves as the remaining Void Hunter forces launched a desperate final assault. The fate of not just the base, but the evolutionary future of countless species across the galaxy now hung in the balance. As the merged form of Carl and Nyx struggled to control the Keystone's awesome power, the defenders of Haven steeled themselves for the coming onslaught. The air crackled with tension and unreleased energy, a calm before the storm that would determine the course of galactic evolution. The air hummed with potential as the defenders of Haven braced themselves for the impending assault. Captain Harper's crystalline form pulsed with urgency as he assessed the situation. With a swift decision, he activated the comm system. Unity, disengage from the Stardancer's weapons and join our ground forces immediately. We need your energy manipulation abilities here. Unity's merged form shimmered into existence on the surface of Haven, their iridescent skin reflecting the chaos around them. Without hesitation, they moved to key entry points, hands outstretched. Waves of energy flowed from their fingertips, coalescing into impenetrable barriers that repelled the first wave of Void Hunter attackers. Inside the Keystone Chamber, the merged entity of Carl and Nyx pulsated with raw power. Their combined form, now a swirling vortex of light and shadow, interfaced directly with the artifact. Dr. Zhang's eyes darted between her monitoring equipment and the ethereal being before her. Alarm flashed across her face as she noted the wildly fluctuating vital signs. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight with concern. "The merged form is destabilizing. They may not survive the full activation process." In orbit, Lieutenant Kovacs gripped the Star Dancer's controls, his expanded consciousness fully integrated with the ship's systems. He watched as the Void Hunter fleet closed in, their energy cannons charging for another devastating volley. "Stardancer to Haven," Kovacs transmitted, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. "I'm positioning the ship between you and the enemy fleet. Our enhanced shielding should buy you some time." The Stardancer's engines flared to life, propelling the vessel into a defensive position. The ship shuddered as it absorbed the first barrage of energy blasts, its shields flickering but holding. On the ground, Sergeant Davis led the charge against the Void Hunter forces. His enhanced physiology pushed to its limits. He moved with impossible speed and precision. Void Hunter elites fell before him, their corrupted forms no match for his amplified abilities. "Push forward," Davis shouted, his voice carrying over the din of battle. "Don't let them near the Keystone Chamber." As the human soldiers engaged in close-quarters combat, a startling change swept through the Lumina telepaths. Their mental abilities surged, expanding beyond mere communication. Objects began to levitate around them, and Void Hunter soldiers found themselves flung backward by invisible forces. One Lumina telepath, her eyes glowing with newfound power, reached out with her mind. A Void Hunter elite, poised to strike, suddenly froze in midair. With a flick of her wrist, she sent him crashing into his own squadmates. Back in the Keystone Chamber, the merged form of Carl and Nyx underwent a dramatic transformation. Their body became increasingly translucent, pulsing with alternating waves of brilliant light and deep shadow. Dr. Zhang's instruments registered a massive energy buildup within the artifact. "The activation process is nearing its climax," she reported, her voice tight with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Outside, the Void Hunter forces abruptly began to pull back. Captain Harper's crystalline form tensed, his tactical mind sensing a trap. "All units, remain vigilant," he ordered. "This isn't over." His caution proved warranted as the enemy regrouped, launching a concentrated attack on the Keystone Chamber itself. Unity, sensing the imminent threat, abandoned their previous positions and rushed to reinforce the chamber's defenses. Their hands moved in complex patterns, weaving a multi-layered energy field around the room. Different frequencies of power intersected and overlapped, creating a defense designed to counter the Void Hunter's phase-shifting technology. As Unity strained to maintain the protective field, a surprising development unfolded on the battlefield. Several Void Hunter soldiers, their forms partially reverted by the Keystone's influence, turned against their comrades. The sudden defection sowed confusion among the attacking forces, creating a momentary lull in the assault. Captain Harper seized the opportunity, his voice ringing out with authority. "Regroup and tighten our perimeter around the Keystone Chamber. We hold this position at all costs. Inside the chamber, Dr. Zhang watched in horror as the merged form of Carl and Nyx began to destabilize. Their combined consciousness flickered, threatening to separate back into individual entities. Without hesitation, she made a bold decision. "I'm going in," she announced, stepping towards the pulsating energy field surrounding Carl and Nyx. "My evolved physiology might stabilize their merger." Before anyone could stop her, Dr. Zhang entered the field. Her body tensed as the energy coursed through her, but she pushed forward, reaching out to touch the merged entity. As her fingers made contact, a blinding surge of power erupted from the keystone. The wave of evolutionary energy burst outward from Haven, washing over the entire star system in a matter of seconds. Every living being within range experienced a rapid series of physiological changes, their forms shifting and adapting in ways never before seen. On the Star Dancer, Lieutenant Kovacs gasped as his neural connection with the ship deepened exponentially. Suddenly, he could control multiple systems simultaneously, his consciousness expanding to encompass every aspect of the vessel. The Star Dancer's movements became fluid and precise, effortlessly evading enemy fire while returning devastatingly accurate counterattacks. Back on Haven, the battle lines blurred as both defenders and attackers underwent rapid evolution. Sergeant Davis stared in amazement as he found himself able to manipulate the very molecules of the environment around him. With a thought, he raised a wall of solid stone between his squad and an approaching group of void hunters. The Lumina telepath's abilities expanded further still, their minds reaching across vast distances. They connected with evolving beings on other planets, coordinating a galactic response to the void hunter threat. As the evolutionary wave continued to spread, promising further transformations and challenges, the merged entity of Carl, Nyx, and now Dr. Zhang pulsed at the heart of Haven. Their combined form grew more stable, but also more alien, channeling power beyond anything previously imagined. The fate of Haven, and indeed the entire galaxy, hung in the balance as the cosmic conflict entered its final, unpredictable stages. Hung in the balance as the cosmic conflict entered its final, unpredictable phase. Within the Keystone Chamber, the merged entity of Carl, Nyx, and Dr. Zhang pulsed with otherworldly energy. The swirling mass of light and shadow began to separate, each consciousness slowly disentangling from the others. As they pulled apart, tendrils of energy stretched between them, transferring knowledge and power. Carl's body emerged first, his human form now adorned with intricate shadowy patterns that rippled across his skin like living tattoos. Nyx followed, her once ethereal body solidifying into a tangible form that blended human and void hunter features. Dr. Zhang materialized last, her eyes wide with the newfound knowledge coursing through her mind. The trio stumbled as their individual forms stabilized, adjusting to the sensations of being separate entities once again. Carl and Nyx instinctively reached for each other, their fingers intertwining. A visible spark of energy crackled where their skin met, a physical manifestation of their newfound connection. Captain Harper watched the separation through the chamber's viewing window, his crystalline form reflecting the pulsating light of the keystone. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, alarms blared throughout the base. Lieutenant Kovacs' voice, tinged with urgency, came through the comm system. "Captain, we've got incoming. A massive void hunter fleet just entered the system. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Harper's mind raced, assessing the situation. With a swift decision, he activated the base-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel. This is Captain Harper. Initiate immediate evacuation protocols. I repeat, immediate evacuation." The captain turned to Sergeant Davis, who had just entered the room. "Davis, oversee the loading of essential personnel and equipment onto the Star Dancer and any functional ships we have left. We need to move fast." Davis nodded, his enhanced physiology allowing him to process the order and formulate a plan in seconds. He sprinted from the room, barking orders into his comm unit. Unity materialized beside Harper, their iridescent form shimmering with terrifying energy. "Captain, I can create a series of defensive barriers around the perimeter. It should buy us some time." Do it, Harper commanded, and coordinate with our remaining forces. We need every second we can get. As Unity moved to execute the plan, Carl and Nix approached the captain. Their bodies still adjusting to their new hybrid forms, they moved with a grace that belied the chaos around them. We want to help, Carl said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. Nix nodded, her now solid form rippling with shadow. Our abilities have evolved. We can create illusions, manipulate light and shadow. We can confuse their scouts, maybe even misdirect their main force. Harper studied them for a moment, then nodded. Get out there and do what you can, but be careful. We don't know the full extent of your new abilities. As Carl and Nix left to join the defensive efforts, Dr. Zhang approached the captain. The keystone, she said, her voice urgent. We can't leave it behind. Harper's crystalline form pulsed with concentration. Agreed. Assemble a team and construct a portable containment unit. We need to harness its power without destabilizing it. Zhang nodded and immediately set to work, her mind already formulating designs based on the knowledge gained during the merger. Outside the base, chaos reigned. The first wave of Void Hunter ships engaged the Star Dancer and the remaining defense vessels in orbit. The sky above Haven lit up with energy, weapons fire, creating a deadly light show. On the ground, Sergeant Davis led a group of evolved human soldiers in guerrilla-style attacks against the advancing Void Hunter forces. His enhanced speed and strength allowed him to move with impossible agility, striking at weak points in the enemy lines before disappearing into the chaos. Keep them off balance, Davis shouted to his squad. Use your new abilities, but don't overextend yourselves. The Lumina telepaths, their powers expanded beyond anything they had known before, provided crucial support. They coordinated the defenders' movements with unparalleled precision, creating a psychic network that allowed for instantaneous communication and tactical adjustments. As the evacuation progressed, Carl and Nix worked in tandem at the edge of the base's perimeter. They wove intricate illusions of false defensive positions, drawing Void Hunter fire away from the actual evacuation routes. Their abilities seemed to feed off each other, growing stronger when they worked in unison. Inside the base, Dr. Zhang and her team raced against time to secure the evolutionary keystone. The artifact pulsed with increasing intensity, its energy rippling through the evacuation efforts and enhancing the abilities of those nearby. Containment field stable, one of Zhang's assistants reported. We're ready for transport. Zhang nodded, her eyes never leaving the swirling energy of the keystone. Let's move. We can't let this fall into Void Hunter hands. As the last of the essential personnel and equipment were loaded onto the evacuation ships, Captain Harper made his way to the base's central control room. With a heavy heart, he initiated the self-destruct sequence. May this sacrifice buy us the time we need, he murmured, watching the countdown begin. Outside, the situation grew increasingly desperate. The main Void Hunter, ground forces breached the outer defenses, pushing closer to the heart of the base. Unity, their form flickering with the strain, created a final massive energy barrier to hold back the advancing enemy. All remaining personnel, fall back to the Star Dancer immediately. Harper's voice rang out over the comm system. This is not a drill. We are leaving now. The last group of defenders made a frantic dash for the ship. Carl and Nix, their powers nearly exhausted, created one final illusion. A massive projection of the Star Dancer leaving the planet. The diversion worked, drawing away a significant portion of the Void Hunter fleet. As the real Star Dancer's ramp began to close, Carl and Nix used their phasing abilities to pull the last few stragglers through the narrowing gap. The ship shuddered as it lifted off, its hull already bearing the scars of battle. Lieutenant Kovacs, his consciousness fully merged with the Star Dancer's systems, executed a series of maneuvers that defied conventional physics. The ship wove through the chaos of the space battle, its trajectory unpredictable and impossible to target. On the bridge, Captain Harper watched as Haven grew smaller on the screen. Just as they cleared the planet's orbit, a massive explosion erupted on the surface. The base's self-destruct sequence obliterated a large portion of the pursuing Void Hunter forces. All hands, brace for FTL jump, Harper commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Kovacs, get us out of here. As the stars blurred around them, Harper knew that this escape was only the beginning. The evolutionary wave unleashed by the Keystone continued to spread across the galaxy, promising further changes and challenges. The crew of the Star Dancer, their bodies and abilities forever altered, raced into an uncertain future, carrying with them the hopes of countless evolving species and the power of the evolutionary Keystone. The ship's FTL engines hummed with power, propelling them into the vast unknown of space. As the immediate danger receded, Captain Harper turned to address his crew, his mind already formulating plans for their next move in this cosmic game of evolution and survival. Survival in the future of countless evolving species. As the Star Dancer streaked through hyperspace, its corridors hummed with restless energy. The crew, still adjusting to their newfound abilities, worked tirelessly to integrate their enhanced capabilities and plan their next move. Nyx paced the dimly lit observation deck, her hybrid form casting shifting shadows on the walls. Sleep eluded her, the trauma of recent events and her altered physiology disrupting her normal rest cycles. She felt a familiar presence approach and turned to see Carl enter the room. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, his voice carrying that otherworldly resonance that still sent shivers down her spine. Nyx shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Haven burning. In this new body, it's like I can feel the void of space pulling at me." Carl moved closer, the shadowy patterns on his skin rippling in response to her proximity. "I know what you mean. It's like we're caught between two worlds now." Without thinking, Nyx reached out and took his hand. A spark of energy crackled between them, and she felt some of the tension leave her body. "Would you stay with me?" she asked hesitantly. "Just for a while?" Carl nodded, and they made their way to Nyx's quarters. As they lay down together, their hybrid bodies seemed to sync naturally. A soothing energy field formed around them, cocoon-like and comforting. For the first time since their transformation, Nyx felt her mind quieting, the chaos of recent events fading into the background. "Thank you," she murmured, already drifting off. Carl said nothing but squeezed her hand gently as she fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. Over the next few days, the crew of the Star Dancer worked to harness their evolved abilities. In the ship's makeshift laboratory, Dr. Zhang and her team studied the evolutionary Keystone, its energy pulsing in sync with the ship's engines. During a strategic meeting in the command center, Unity's form shimmered with excitement. "Captain, I've detected an anomaly in the Keystone's energy patterns. It appears to be an encoded signal." Captain Harper's crystalline form pulsed with interest. "Can you decrypt it, Dr. Zhang?" The scientist's fingers flew over her console, her enhanced mind processing the data at incredible speeds. "It's a set of coordinates," she announced after a moment. "And a message. It's from the original makers of the Keystone." A hush fell over the room as Zhang read the message aloud. The coordinates led to an ancient space station, a failsafe created by the ancients who foresaw the potential misuse of their creation. "Set a course for those coordinates, Lieutenant Kovacs," Harper ordered. "This could be the key to understanding what's happening to us in the entire galaxy." The Star Dancer dropped out of hyperspace near a massive ring-shaped station orbiting a dying star. Its surface was etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Carl, Nyx, you'll lead the exploration team," Harper said. "Your hybrid abilities might allow you to interface with the alien technology." As the team boarded a shuttle to the station, Carl and Nyx exchanged a look. Their recent intimacy had deepened their connection, and they could almost sense each other's thoughts. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the team entered the station's cavernous main hall. Carl and Nyx moved ahead, their hybrid forms allowing them to instinctively navigate the alien architecture. As they approached a central console, Carl placed his hand on its surface. The shadowy patterns on his skin seemed to flow into the machine, and suddenly the entire station hummed to life. Lights flickered on, and holographic displays sprang into existence around them. A massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall, depicting a being of pure energy. Its voice echoed through the station as it began to speak. "Greetings, evolved ones. We are the ancients, creators of the evolutionary Keystone. Our artifact was meant to guide species towards beneficial evolution, not to be used as a weapon. This station is our failsafe, designed to refine and stabilize the evolutionary process across the galaxy. The hologram gestured, and the station's systems fully activated. A pulse of energy, far more powerful than the one released on Haven, burst forth from the station. It spread across the galaxy at impossible speeds, touching every world affected by the keystone. On the Star Dancer's bridge, the crew watched in awe as the energy wave passed through them. They felt their bodies stabilize, their new abilities becoming more integrated and natural. "The pulse is refining the evolutionary changes," Dr. Zhang reported, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's ensuring all affected species reach a harmonious state of advancement." As the pulse spread, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The pursuing Void Hunter fleet had been impacted, their ships and even their bodies undergoing rapid transformations. The corruption that had driven them was being cleansed, returning them to their original forms and granting them the ability to evolve naturally. Back on the station, Carl and Nix made another stunning discovery. They found a chamber filled with swirling portals, stable wormholes that could allow instantaneous travel across the galaxy. "This changes everything," Nix breathed, her hand intertwined with Carl's as they stood before the shimmering gateways. "We can explore the farthest reaches of space, connect with other evolved species." Carl nodded, feeling the weight of this discovery. "It's a new era for the galaxy, but with great power comes great responsibility." As if in response to his words, ships began to appear through the wormholes. Vessels of all shapes and sizes, carrying representatives from countless worlds touched by the evolutionary wave. Captain Harper's voice came through their comms, filled with a mix of awe and persistence. "I'm proposing the formation of a galactic council. We need to work together to guide the future of our universe." Carl and Nix stood on the station's observation deck, watching as more ships arrived. Their bodies pulsed with shared energy, a physical manifestation of the bond between them and the bright future that lay ahead. As they embraced, their hybrid forms momentarily merged, becoming a swirling vortex of light and shadow. In that moment, they were no longer just human and Void Hunter, but something entirely new, a symbol of unity and endless potential. The station's light spread across the galaxy, a beacon of hope promising a new age of peace, evolution, and limitless possibilities. As Carl and Nix's forms separated, they knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. The galaxy was changing, evolving, and they would be at the forefront of this new cosmic adventure.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.